Chapter 4294. That's impossible. The Mahavairākana Buddha World Lord shook his head without hesitation and said, the current Mahavairākana Buddha World Lord will take all of his karmic hindrances and merits for himself, not giving him any chance. Moreover, the current Mahavairākana Buddha World Lord chose his Buddha form instead of his original form to prevent such a mistake. It also eliminated the possibility of him having such a plan. It's a pity that the great snowy mountain was shrouded by the phenomena of attaining fruition. Even with our abilities, we couldn't see what was happening inside. The Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord's voice became softer and softer. The Mahavairākana Buddha World Lord answered, although we don't know the process, we already know the result. I thought that Xuanzang was Ananda's reincarnation and arranged for him to attain the sutra praying in nirvana. However, I didn't expect him to be the current fleshly body of the Mahavairākana Buddha World Lord. Moreover, he had attained fruition in the great snowy mountain small exquisite temple before returning to the Thunder Sound Temple. However, the current Namo Mahavairākana Buddha World Lord snatched his Buddha position away. His Buddha fruit was taken away, but he cultivated the Heart Sutra of Prajnaparamita and blocked Ananda's path to Buddhism. The billions of merits from sutra seeking in nirvana helped him. When he arrived at the town of longevity, it would be the time for him to attain fruition, and his merits would be worthy of the Buddha fruit. However, I'm confused. Where's Ananda? Yeah. Where's Ananda? The Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord's face was filled with bitterness. The sutra praying in nirvana was originally arranged for Ananda. However, who knew that Jiang Luer, who cultivated the Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra, wasn't Ananda at all? Instead, it was the Namo Mahavairākana Buddha World Lord who was born at the same time. The two World Lords had arranged a lot of things, and it could be said that they were all done for someone else. It was no wonder that the Mahavairākana Buddha World Lord, who was known to have all-seeing eyes, felt depressed. After a while, the Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord asked again, the three continents of the Paramitha world suddenly appeared, and they had disappeared for the past 200 years. Who from the Holy Light world had descended upon the three continents? I'm afraid that it has something to do with the Holy Light world. I wonder if this Maitreya Buddha of the world. Although Maitreya Buddha of the world seems to be acting against my Lain temple, he is not from the Holy Light world. He has no karma with the Holy Light world at all. Mahavairākana Buddha of the world shook his head. Otherwise, would not have given him the current exquisite leaf sutra. This unfavorable action is probably related to the attainment of pureness, right? The Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord asked with his eyes closed. Mahavairākana nodded, that's right. Two rivals who were vying for the position of the future Buddha Lord had appeared in Lain Temple at the same time. There was bound to be a fierce battle. Just wait and see. After saying that, Mahavairākana closed his eyes, and the Buddhist light around him gradually weakened. Within the light behind him, the endless river of faith flowed. In the incomparably vast southern sea, Xiaohua's figure was high up in the sky. In the dark night, other than the roaring of the waves in his ears, there was only the howling of the sea breeze. There was no moon hanging high up in the sky, nor were there any specks of starlight. Layers of dark clouds covered everything that Xiaohua's eyes could see. Woo! A layer of huge waves appeared around Xiaohua's figure. After falling into the sea's surface, another row of waves surged into the distance like a mountain ridge. Several large fishes leaped out from the waves, and their pale white bellies were particularly eye-catching in the darkness. Xiaohua released his divine sense and looked around. Then, he smiled with relief, since I'm here, no one will notice me. Moreover, the night is dark and the wind is strong. It's the best time to kill people. I'll kill a few people to see. While speaking, rumble. A few faint traces of lightning appeared in the dark clouds. The sea breeze intensified again, and raindrops fell with a swish-swish sound. The storm that had been brewing for a long time finally fell. Boom. Xiaohua patted his head, and the pressure that he had been suppressing since returning to the three continents was released once again. His divine sense penetrated the dark clouds high up in the sky and touched the green-red transparent lightning that had been following Xiaohua. Boom boom boom. Just as Xiaohua released his pressure, the green-red lightning immediately roared like a group of dragons that had broken free of their reins. It enveloped an area of 10,000 li, and the stormy dark clouds were instantly destroyed by this lightning. The green-red lightning carried the will of heaven and earth, and mercilessly crossed the space and landed on Xiaohua, who was sitting cross-legged on the surface of the sea. Namo Maitreya Buddha. The corner of Xiaohua's mouth rose. He understood very well that his Mahayana lightning tribulation was past in the heavenly prison, and the lightning tribulation there was not complete. The ruins and chaos continent that he had experienced later were all from the upper realm, and there was no lightning tribulation. Even if there was lightning, it was different from the three continents. And now that he had returned to the three continents, he had to bear the brunt of the lightning tribulation and completely complete the transformation of the Mahayana realm. Previously on the snowy mountain, in order to not affect Namo Maitreya Buddha's enlightenment, Xiaohua had been suppressing his cultivation. Now that he was here, there was no one, and there were no sea beasts within 10,000 li. Wasn't this the time for him to pass the remaining lightning tribulation? Fortunately, I have already experienced most of the tribulation in the heavenly prison, so the remaining lightning tribulation won't affect too much. Just as Xiaohua's thoughts were born, the lightning had already landed, hitting his bronze avatar. The sun rose from the place where the sea met the sky. The endless sunlight passed through the rising water vapor and fell on the blue waves. The orange-red color dyed the clear sky and the water surface, and an indescribable vitality was born from this halo. Above the clear sky, there were traces of dark clouds that had not completely dissipated. Above the blue waves, there was a chaotic whirlpool, and all kinds of debris from the bottom of the sea mixed with bubbles were flowing around the whirlpool. In addition to the saltiness of the sea breeze, there was also a strong smell of smoke and fire, which was the remnants of the lightning tribulation. At this time, dozens of days had already passed. Dozens of days of lightning tribulation, as Xiaohua thought, was not particularly dangerous. Xiaohua passed it without difficulty, and the harvest of the lightning tribulation was obviously huge. Xiaohua's nascent soul had absorbed some of the primordial purple qi in his body, and his realm had already begun to touch the final tribulation of the scattered soul realm. At the same time, his own realm of Taoism had also crossed into the so-called tribulation-passing realm. However, at this time, Xiaohua had no time to be happy. His figure stood in mid-air, swallowing a mouthful of sun essence, and his face revealed a trace of embarrassment. It was not difficult to find the South Sea from the Western Paradise, but to find the South Sea Dragon Palace in the South Sea was a troublesome matter. Xiaohua wanted to train his sense of direction, and in his hand, he held the jade eyes given by Sun Jian to find the Dragon Palace in the vast South Sea. Xiaohua had some feeling, but seeing the storm in front of him, and in a place where there was no one, Xiaohua simply passed the lightning tribulation that had been following him in the sky. However, after passing the lightning tribulation, Xiaohua found that he could not find the same feeling as before. Even with the jade eyes given by Sun Jian, it was difficult to find the South Sea Dragon Palace. Forget it. Xiaohua simply put away the jade eyes, took out the Kunlun mirror, and released Jiang Hong. As soon as Jiang Hong came out of the space, she bowed and looked around very sensitively, and asked curiously, "Master, this is the South Sea, what are you doing in the South Sea?" Xiaohua did not know whether to laugh or cry. He had been flying for a long time, but he could not find the direction of the South Sea. His disciple was good. As soon as she came out, she did not hesitate at all and immediately recognized that it was the South Sea. A human and a dragon, there was no way to compare. Xiaohua was too lazy to ask Jiang Hong how she knew it was the South Sea. He only asked, "Jiang Hong, do you know where the South Sea Dragon Palace is?" Of course, this disciple knows. Jiang Hong pursed her lips and smiled. Although the South Sea Dragon Palace is a secret to ordinary dragons, it is nothing to my heavenly abode river. Take me there. Xiaohua ordered, just the general area is enough, you don't have to face the South Sea Dragon Palace personally. This disciple is not afraid of AO concrete now. Jiang Hong replied confidently. This is not a matter of whether you are afraid or not. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, we have left the three mainlands for more than 200 years, who knows what relationship your heavenly abode river has with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. If you rashly get involved, you might end up like a dog instead of a tiger. This disciple will listen to master. Jiang Hong smiled and said, this disciple is now a Fortune Gate disciple and Lu Yi's wife. In fact, this disciple has nothing to do with the heavenly abode river. It is not up to you to say that it has nothing to do with you. Your identity is there, it is easy for people to use it as an excuse to make a fuss. Xiaohua smiled and said to Jiang Hong as he flew with her. After flying for more than 10 days, they saw more than 10 pillars of water shooting out from the sea in front of them. They turned into splashes in midair and slowly fell back down. Huge whales poked their huge bodies out of the sea. Hundreds of unknown fishes, each several tens of feet long, lined up in a row and leaped out of the sea. Their fins unfolded, forming thin fleshy wings that supported the fishes as they glided through the air. Then, with a puff-puff sound, which seemed to be cheerful, came from the fishes' mouths. Jiang Hong stopped and pointed into the distance. She bowed and said, Master, about 2,000 li in that direction, you will enter the South Sea Dragon Palace's territory. This 2,000 li area is one of the South Sea Dragon Palace's layers of defense. When this disciple sneaked in, it was the Blue Waves Barren Water Grand Formation. This disciple's cultivation was shallow at that time, and after coming into contact with it, I realized that I was no match for it and escaped with the elder. I don't know if it is still the same Grand Formation. Generally speaking, there are no patrolling soldiers outside the Grand Formation. This disciple did not notice any soldiers chasing after us that day. However, once you reach the core of the Grand Formation or enter the defensive layer, there will be patrolling yikshaws patrolling the sea. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and looked into the distance. It was also calm. He nodded and said, when I saved you back then, I rode on the dragon boat of the North Sea Dragon Palace. The North Sea Dragon Palace also has some similar defenses. Yes, Master. Jiang Hong said, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas is the center of the Dragon Clan's defense of the Four Seas. Generally, the Sea Clan cannot casually approach the Dragon Palace. Even the majority of the Dragon Palace's defensive formations are Xiantian. Even if the Dragon Palace's crown prince enters and leaves the Dragon Palace, he cannot only rely on tokens. He can only rely on dragon boats and other weapons of the Dragon Clan. Ordinary patrolling envoys can only be sent in and out by the Dragon Palace's guards at specific times. Chapter 4295. At this point, Jiang Hong smiled and said, of course, when one's strength reaches master's level, he is already a target of the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas. The Dragon Kings of the Four Seas will definitely give him a token such as a dragon pendant. Once master comes within 100,000 miles of the Dragon Palace with the dragon pendant, the Dragon Kings will sense it and immediately come out to greet you. There is no need to break through these defenses. On the three continents, other than the mysterious Grand Mist Ancestor, I'm afraid there is no Daoist cultivator with a 9th grade essence force. Who knows what kind of face the Dragon King of the South Sea will have when he sees me? Xiaohua shrugged and said, you go back to the Shenhua continent first. I will go and take a look. Yes, Master. If you need anything, feel free to call me out. On the Shenhua continent, the descendants of the Dragon Clan are not necessarily inferior to the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas. Jiang Hong replied heroically. Although the Lu clan is the #1 family in the Shenhua continent, my disciple, don't forget how long the dragon palaces of the 4 seas have existed in the 3 continents. You only know the situation after the fall of the Heavenly Abode River. I'm afraid you don't know how the Heavenly Abode River used to be. The dragon palaces of the 4 seas control the 4 seas. Sometimes, they even look down on the Dragon Island. Their foundation. I don't need to say anything more, right? Xiaofan said earnestly. Jiang Hong hurriedly lowered her head and said, yes, disciple understands. After Jiang Hong returned to the Shenhua continent, Xiaofan transformed into a rainbow and broke through the sky. In just a moment, he had arrived at the place that Jiang Hong had pointed out. Xiaofan released his divine consciousness, and indeed, it was as Jiang Hong had said. In the space tens of thousands of miles in front of him, there was an indescribable ripple of light. This ripple of light was condensed into strands like water vapor, and every strand of light carried an indescribable might. What was special was that these ripples of light floated in a large area without any pattern, and there was no gap at all. There weren't any fishes or seabirds approaching this space. Even the clouds high up in the sky had tactfully fled. The scorching sun that had already risen high up in the sky shone down directly, distorting the light curtain in this space into several sections. Heh. Xiaohua's divine sense swept over, but was blocked by this wave of light. He didn't forcefully activate his divine sense, but instead laughed coldly. If it was in the past, he would most likely activate his divine sense and test the power of this formation. But now, why should he personally break the formation? With a wave of Xiaohua's hand, the huge thunderboat flashed with lightning and landed in the air with a rumbling sound. Its powerful aura caused the sea surface to cave in. The sea breeze was also suppressed by the thunderboat and became silent. Xiaohua's figure landed on the thunderboat. His hands rubbed together, and streaks of crystal light fell into the thunderboat. They turned into rays of light and rose from the edge of the thunderboat, protecting the entire thunderboat. Then, with a loud rumbling sound, the thunderboat began to slowly rush into the formation. Boom! Without waiting for the thunderboat to get close to the formation, the sharp lightning in front of the thunderboat had already pierced into it. But, within a few miles of the thunderboat, a trembling sound could be heard. Huge crystal-like crystals began to pile up at an extremely fast speed. Not to mention that the cultivator's body would be smashed into meat paste by these huge crystals, even the thunderboat's lightning was extremely shaken by these crystals. The thunderboat's lightning that acted as the vanguard was annihilated after smashing a dozen or so crystals. Interesting. The corner of Xiaohua's mouth slightly raised. The transcendence energy that was sent into the thunderboat had begun to slow down, and the thunder pool inside the thunderboat had already been activated, causing the thunderboat's speed to become even faster. Boom boom. With an unstoppable force, the thunderboat rushed into the crystal. The huge crystal was directly smashed into pieces by the thunderboat, and these pieces were turned into pure water-type spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the thunderboat's lightning. And, as the thunderboat crashed into the crystal, more and more crystals were born. Within a range of thousands of miles, it condensed into a castle-like defense. This defensive castle was made of solid crystals. It seemed to be indestructible, but in front of the thunderboat, this sturdiness was so pale. Wherever the thunderboat rushed past, the neat crystal disintegrated, and a huge trembling sound resounded in the space of thousands of miles. Woo-woo. After the thunderboat rushed in for hundreds of miles, the surrounding space was completely filled with shattered crystals. At this time, a strange wind suddenly appeared from the void near the thunderboat. Waves of light blue astral wind appeared on the surface of the sea. Wherever the astral wind passed, everything was frozen, whether it was the spiritual chi of heaven and earth or the shattered crystals. Even the dazzling lightning revealed a pale color. The astral wind came and went quickly, but the space within 1,000 miles turned into a solid ice ball. The thunderboat was trapped in the ice ball. Looking at the lightning through the ice ball, it was like looking at fireworks at night. Xiaofan stood on the thunderboat, not in a hurry to activate the thunderboat. In his ears, after the thunderboat was frozen, the entire thunder pool let out a roar. Thick bolts of lightning coiled around the thunderboat like old vines, and the powerful force of the thunderboat struggled to break free from the confinement of the astral wind. Gotcha! In front of the thunderboat, where the huge bolts of lightning collided, a crack appeared on the huge ice ball. Once this crack appeared, it immediately spread out in all directions. In just a moment, the ice ball that was thousands of miles in size was covered with cracks. Boom! Like the eruption of magma, the lightning bolts actually turned into liquid and rushed out, exploding the entire ice ball into pieces. The thunderboat broke through the ice ball's blockade, and like a sharp knife, it directly pierced into the center of the array. The thunderboat only flew 100 miles forward, and the entire sea began to boil again. Large and small water columns rushed out from the bottom of the sea, mixed with many reefs, and rushed towards the thunderboat. Boom boom. The nearly 10,000 kilograms of huge rocks with the impact of the sea waves smashed the thunderboat, causing it to tremble again. Countless bolts of lightning sprinkled down, and the thunderboat's pitch-black hull was revealed in the impact. Roar roar. Fine dragon patterns actually appeared on the hull of the thunderboat. These dragon patterns covered the surface of the thunderboat, and strange dragon roars came from the patterns. The dragon tattoo blocked all the attacks. The entire lightning boat merely paused for a moment before it roared wildly again. Like a crazy sea beast, lightning reappeared. It dragged its swaying tail as it charged into the depths of the sea under the ambush of countless water pillars. Enemy attack, enemy attack. The impact of the thunderboat's impact was so great that it activated the arrays within several thousand miles. The Yikshaws who were patrolling the sea turned pale with fright. They fled while sending messages to the Dragon Palace. At the same time, many shrimp soldiers and crab generals rushed out from the bottom of the sea, each holding a weapon, and lined up neatly on the surface of the sea, waiting to meet the enemy. Boom! The thunderboat broke through the sky, and its huge hull blocked the sunlight. Its shadow covered the surface of the sea, and also some members of the oceanic race. Seeing such a huge flying boat, and the might of the flying boat that made people tremble, all the members of the oceanic race were stunned. At this time, Xiaohua's thin and tall figure flew out from the thunderboat, and he released part of his pressure. His gaze swept through the crowd of oceanic race, and he looked into the distance, and he said indifferently, "This old man is Xiaohua of the Tao sect. Today, I have come to pay a visit to the South Sea Dragon King." Hiss. Although Xiaohua's figure was small, his aura far surpassed that of the thunderboat. He stood in front of the thunderboat, and he had already taken away the dazzling light of the thunderboat. As soon as Xiaohua's words came out, under the powerful pressure, all the members of the oceanic race found it difficult to stand on the surface of the sea, and they fell into the sea one after another. Xiaohua didn't pay attention to these members of the oceanic race, and he only narrowed his eyes, looking forward. He saw that the sea inside the array was no different from the rest of the sea, but this sea was glittering with golden light, and a palace that was 10,000 miles in size was floating on the surface of the sea. This palace was very huge, and it was similar to the palace Xiaohua saw on the Dragon Island. Just the palace gate was 10,000 feet in size, and those thick pillars were like mountain peaks. In front of the palace, there was a huge palace gate, and on the high signboard that seemed to break through the sky, there were two strange characters written on it. Xiaohua's gaze swept over, and a voice in the dragon language appeared in his mind. It was the two words, South Sea. However, Xiaohua faced this imposing palace, and he only gave it a glance, and then looked at the stairs in front of the palace gate. Those stairs seemed to lead to the palace gate above the sea, but in Xiaohua's divine sense, there was a huge whirlpool that led straight to the bottom of the sea. If Xiao Hua's divine sense wasn't strong enough, he might not have discovered the strangeness. After seeing all this, Xiao Hua frowned. After all, he had already revealed the strength of a high-level cultivator. The Dragon King of the South Sea Dragon Palace might not come out to greet him, but the Dragon Generals of the Dragon Palace should have come out, right? But at this time, not even a Dragon General with some strength had appeared. Humph! Xiao Hua coldly snorted, and withdrew his pressure. He also withdrew the thunderbolt with a flick of his sleeve, and asked somewhat angrily, "What? Could it be that the South Sea Dragon Palace doesn't welcome this Xiao? This little one greets Dragon Master." Just as Xiao Hua's voice fell, a sea-patrolling Yiksha flew out from under the sea, and somewhat trembled as he kowtowed in front of this Xiao. "This little one has already sent a subordinate to report to the Dragon Palace. Please wait a moment, Dragon Master." Dragon Master? Hee, this Xiao actually forgot. This Xiao also has the title of Dragon Master. Xiao Hua stared blankly for a moment, then he smiled and nodded. Not long after he came out from the Dragon Island, he fell into the heavenly prison. After tens of thousands of years of wandering, he had already forgotten this title on the Dragon Island. Is your Dragon King at home? Xiao Hua originally had a casual temperament. Seeing the sea-patrolling Yiksha being so respectful to him, he didn't put on airs and casually asked. The sea-patrolling Yiksha hesitated for a moment, and replied, "This little one doesn't know the whereabouts of my Dragon King, so I also don't know if the Dragon King is in the Dragon Palace." "What about the Dragon Generals of the South Sea?" Xiao Hua asked again. The sea-patrolling Yiksha was even more hesitant. After all, Xiao Hua wasn't of the dragon race. Although he had the title of Dragon Master, the sea-patrolling Yiksha didn't dare to tell all the secrets of the South Sea Dragon Palace to Xiao Hua. Humph! Xiao Hua coldly snorted again, and suddenly raised his head, looking at the palace in the sky. Hearing Xiao Hua's anger, the sea-patrolling Yiksha hurriedly bowed and said, "Dragon Master, please calm down, Dragon Master, please calm down." Chapter 4296. Xiao Hua was not angry at the hesitation of the patrolling Yikshas. He had noticed that someone was spying on the Dragon Palace, but when he scanned the place with his divine sense, it was empty, and he did not find anything. But what Xiao Hua did not know was that at the bottom of the sea under the Dragon Palace, a bloody scene had just unfolded in a huge palace. This palace was similar to Ao Sheng's palace. There was a high platform at the front, and a huge golden table was placed on top of it. Behind the golden table was a huge mattress. This mattress was transparent, and there were many colorful crystal beads embedded in it. The light of these crystal beads lingered around each other, making it look like a beautiful mobile. There were no dragons on the high platform, only two armored dragons standing proudly in front of the golden table. Below the high platform was the main hall, and on both sides, there were a dozen or so small golden tables. On these golden tables, there were some spirit fruits, wine, and food. In particular, in the corner of the wine and food, there was a special fragrant exotic fruit. Behind these golden tables were some dragons, but these dragons were all lying on the ground with their eyes closed, and some saliva was flowing out of their mouths and noses. Close to the dragon tribe were armored dragon generals. Although these dragon generals were holding weapons in their hands, they were also lying weakly on the ground. There was a strange smile on their faces and their eyes were tightly shut. On the contrary, behind the pillars on both sides of the main hall stood dozens of valiant dragon generals. These dragon generals were either holding long spears or huge sabers, and each of them was exuding a shocking murderous aura. Under the murderous aura, the main hall seemed very quiet. The seawater was as transparent as crystal, and there was not even a bubble. On the four sides of the main hall, the huge coral trees were emitting colorful light, and some of the water plants around the coral trees were not swaying at all. Everything in the main hall seemed to be confined. Fourth Prince. At this time, a voice broke the silence. It was one of the dragons on the high platform. This dragon was wearing a bright yellow armor, and the armor covered his face, making it impossible to see his appearance. Now is the time to make a decision. The other dragon, who was originally facing the golden seat, also turned around at this time. It was the fourth prince of the South Sea Dragon Palace, Ao Qian, whom Xiaofan had seen in the stacked Jade Legacy realm. Although Ao Qian's face was filled with arrogance, his eyes flashed with hesitation. His gaze swept across the two sides of the hall as he asked in a low voice, "Senior, do we really have to do this? Is there no other way?" The dragon that covered his face sneered. He looked at the golden throne and said, "There is only one person in the entire South Sea Dragon Palace who can sit on this golden throne. If there were no accidents, do you think it's possible for you to sit in that position?" Ao Qian smiled bitterly and said, "How is that possible? This junior is only the fourth crown prince. Above me are the first crown prince, second crown prince, and third crown prince. Furthermore, royal father favors the second crown prince. Even if the first crown prince cannot sit on this golden throne, this position is not something this junior can sit on. If that's the case, why can't there be an accident?" Even though what was done, the dragon race being continued to speak to Ao Qian patiently. He was in no hurry at all. "We've already done so much. Do you think that there's still a way out for you?" Ao Qian still smiled bitterly. Actually, this junior really didn't think that much. If not for senior, at this point, a trace of regret flashed across Ao Qian's eyes. He lowered his head and looked at the dragons lying on the ground. He didn't say anything else. The dragon race being was quick to act. He didn't hesitate at all. He smiled and said, "Hee, so the fourth crown prince only has love in his heart and doesn't have any ambitions. Then this old man has misjudged you. No matter, my sons, wake the princes up. This old man will apologize to them." "Yes." The dozens of dragon generals behind the pillar all agreed. They raised their hands and were about to take out the dragon shell. "Io, wait." Seeing that the dragon race was about to do it, Ao Qian panicked again. He hurriedly called out, "Senior, don't be anxious, fourth crown prince, is there anything else?" The dragon race said with a smile. "This old man has to hurry up and settle this matter here. I still have to go back and report to the elders." This. Ao Qian smiled bitterly. It's not that this junior doesn't want to listen to senior's advice, but to really cut off the blood relatives that I grew up with. This junior really can't bear it. The dragon race nodded. "You're not wrong. To tell you the truth, it's precisely because of this bit of kinship in your heart that the elders value you. If you didn't hesitate to make a move, this old man might really change his mind. Since you care about your blood relatives, this old man really has to help you." As he spoke, the dragon race raised his hand and pointed at the first crown prince and second crown prince who were lying on the ground on the left and right below the high platform. He asked, "When these two princes are scheming and fighting for the golden throne, have they ever shown mercy?" "Never." Ao Qian shook his head. "According to what this junior knows, if there's a chance between them, they definitely won't let each other live. It's also because of this that this junior has the chance to go to Dragon Island to train. Not the two of them. What about them to you? If they knew that you wanted to take the Dragon King's position, would they let you live?" The dragon race asked with interest. Sigh. "How is that possible?" Ao Qian smiled bitterly again. "Ever since this junior was sensible, I knew that the position of Dragon King did not belong to me. I definitely could not have any other thoughts. All these years, this junior has never told the other members of the Dragon clan about my thoughts. I have never dared to look at that golden throne. In the eyes of the other dragons, this junior is just a carefree prince. Even so, the first crown prince has been beating around the bush and arranging spies around this junior. Isn't that the case? They don't have any kinship in their eyes. Why do you have to worry? The dragon race laughed. What you're doing is just what they want to do but can't do. Furthermore, the South Sea Dragon Palace will only decline in the hands of the dragon race who doesn't recognize their own kin. It will forever be at the bottom of the dragon palaces of the four seas. Only in your hands can it have a chance of glory and become the head of the dragon palaces of the four seas. Perhaps. Ao Qian's gaze was a little unfocused. Fourth Crown Prince. The dragon race spoke again. To be honest, today's opportunity is really a gift from the heavens. Your royal father went to the East Sea Dragon Palace for a banquet, and this old man just happened to be here. If this old man didn't have the elder's orders, how could the first crown prince, second crown prince, and third crown prince come together for a banquet? If this old man didn't have the deity parting flower and the fourth crown prince coincidentally had the bewitching wine, how could the three crown princes sleep so peacefully? All these coincidences. You don't think this old man is scheming, do you? That's not true. Ao Qian regained his senses and replied. This junior has only obtained the bewitching wine a few days ago. This junior has never mentioned it to anyone. Senior, you can't possibly know. Therefore, such an excellent opportunity is a gift from the heavens. If the fourth crown prince doesn't grasp it, then you won't have such an opportunity in the future. The dragon race said meaningfully. Furthermore, when other dragons have this opportunity in the future, fourth crown prince, you can't blame the heavens and accuse others. But the fourth crown prince still seemed to hesitate. The dragon race had already begun to frown. At this moment, a strange sound began to come from outside the hall. It sounded rather hurried. Who is it? The fourth crown prince, Ao Qian, was furious. He roared at the dragon general who was standing guard outside the hall. Didn't this prince say it already? No matter what happens outside, you can't disturb this prince. Yes, this subordinate understands. The vigilant dragon general agreed without hesitation. He waved his hand and a crescent-shaped dragon weapon appeared. The warning sound instantly disappeared. Fourth crown prince, could it be that you still have some misgivings? At this moment, the dragon race came to his senses and asked in a low voice. Ao Qian nodded. Indeed. Although royal father isn't in the dragon palace, if he returns and sees the three crown princes missing, senior, what do you think he'll think? The dragon race nodded. That's a problem. This isn't easy to answer. After all, you're the one who benefited the most. Anyone who guesses will put you at the top of the list of suspects. However, even if that's the case, so what? Does the South Sea Dragon King want to kill you as well? It's not impossible. Ao Qian answered with a bitter face. That's this junior's greatest misgivings. Buzz buzz. Before the dragon tribe could reply, an unusual activity was once again transmitted from outside the hall. Ao Qian's face was startled. He glanced in the direction of the hall door before looking at the dragon tribe. Finally, he opened his mouth and said, something unusual must have occurred outside the hall. Otherwise, it is impossible for this junior subordinate to repeatedly warn us. Fourth crown prince, let's go take a look. The dragon race sighed softly. He seemed to be very dissatisfied with the fourth crown prince's indecisiveness. Ao Qian nodded at the dragon general outside the hall door. He clenched his claws and glanced at the three crown princes below the high platform. Clearly, he was prepared to make a move if he sensed that something was wrong. The dragon general raised his dragon claw and grabbed at the hall door. A whirlpool appeared in the jade water outside the door. A moment later, a fist-sized dragon crystal flew out of the whirlpool. The dragon general hurriedly picked it up and respectfully presented it to the fourth crown prince. Ao Qian took the dragon crystal and scanned it with his yuan will. His expression changed drastically as he cried out involuntarily, "Enemy attack? How is this possible? Someone actually took advantage of the weakness of the South Sea Dragon Palace's defensive array to attack the array?" When Ao Qian said this, not only did the dragon race beside him, but even the dragon generals near the hall also changed their expressions. Today, in order to set up a trap, Ao Qian used the Dragon Palace's secret order to call back all the dragon generals within the defensive array. Firstly, he wanted to kill the dragon generals loyal to the three crown princes. Secondly, he was afraid that the three crown princes would resist. Ao Qian wanted to concentrate his forces near the hall. In his opinion, the South Sea Dragon Palace had not been attacked by enemies for tens of thousands of years. How could there be a change in half a day? However, an enemy had taken advantage of the moment when the defensive array was relaxed to attack. In that case, who was the enemy that came to invade? Chapter 4297. Ao Qian couldn't help but let his imagination run wild. His first reaction was that outside the South Sea Dragon Palace, the three princes' hidden forces had received the news and were aggressively charging in from outside. Dragon generals. Ao Qian panicked and hurriedly ordered, "Quickly arrange the troops and prepare to face the enemy." If Ao Qian could think of it, the dragon beside him could naturally think of it too. When he saw Ao Qian panicking, he couldn't help but despise him in his heart. However, there was no panic in his tone. Instead, he laughed and said, "Hee hee. Fourth prince, don't worry. Senior, why aren't you worried? If the three princes' forces attack, wouldn't our plan be exposed?" Ao Qian's tone was truly panicked. "Fourth prince, since there are dragon generals attacking, it means that our plan has been exposed. They want to save their masters, but what's the use of them coming? The three princes are in your hands. Even if they attack the main hall, don't they still have to listen to you? They aren't attacking to save their masters, they're clearly here to seek refuge." Hearing this, Ao Qian's expression calmed down. He rolled his eyes and nodded, "Senior's words are true. Why don't we wait a little longer? What are you waiting for? If we kill the three princes, won't their thoughts be cut off?" The dragon's brows hidden under the helmet frowned as he persuaded again. Ao Qian smiled and said, "No hurry, no hurry. A living dragon is much more useful than a dead prince." "All right." Seeing that his persuasion didn't work, the dragon didn't say anything else. Shwa. Ao Qian took out a diamond-shaped dragon weapon from his bosom and blew a dragon breath on it. A watery light appeared inside the dragon weapon. The watery light fell into the sea and formed a large mirror. The situation outside the South Sea Dragon Palace was impressively visible. Sure enough, the water outside the Dragon Palace surged like a monstrous wave. A pitch-black thunderbolt broke through the water. When Xiaohua flew out from the thunderbolt, Ao Qian said in surprise, "Xiaohua. Dragon Master Xiao. Damn it, why did he come to my South Sea Dragon Palace at this time? Could it be the other elders of Dragon Island?" While speaking, Ao Qian's expression changed greatly as he looked at the dragon beside him. It's really Xiaohua. How could he have come to the South Sea? How strange. I heard that this guy isn't. The dragon race's reaction was even more intense than Ao Qian's. His voice was filled with confusion and confusion. However, a moment later, the dragon clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Congratulations, fourth prince. Congratulations, fourth prince." Ao Qian stared blankly at the dragon, not knowing what to do, and asked curiously, "Senior, this junior. What is the good news?" The dragon said in a serious manner, "Didn't I just tell you that everything that happened today was a coincidence? It was all destined by the heavens. You're hesitating again, saying that you don't have any excuses. Now, the heavens have sent us an excuse. If the fourth prince continues to hesitate, he'll really lose the favor of the heavens. Excuse? You mean? Xiao Longshi? Ao Qian still didn't understand. What bullshit, Dragon Master? The dragon coldly scolded, what qualifications does a mere human have to be our dragon clan's Dragon Master? It's just an empty title that Ao Jia casually gave out in order to win over people's hearts and strengthen his own forces. No one in my Dragon Island will take this title seriously. Indeed. Ao Qian also didn't understand, that day, this Xiao Hua was indeed very close to the little clan elder, and he also has our dragon clan's bloodline. However, if we were to treat him as some dragon master, even this junior feels that it's inappropriate. If that five-clawed golden dragon that appeared in the folded jade legacy realm is our dragon master, then it's still acceptable. The five-clawed golden dragon is a dragon that Xiao Hua secretly brought in. The dragon immediately blurted out, Ao Jia said that he couldn't move the five-clawed golden dragon to work for him, so he sold a favor to Xiao Hua. He wanted to influence that five-clawed golden dragon through Xiao Hua, so that's how it is. Although Ao Qian felt that this explanation was a bit far-fetched, he didn't have the time to think too much about it. However, what does this have to do with an excuse? Fourth prince. The dragon was helpless. He could only say clearly, you killed the three princes, so why don't you just shift the blame to Xiao Hua? But Ao Qian was even more confused. Xiao Hua only has the strength of the 6th level of essence power. How could he kill the first, second, and third princes in succession? This junior has no way to explain it in front of royal father. What else do you need to explain? The dragon sneered, the dead can't redress their grievances. Why do you care what his cultivation is? Ao Qian narrowed his eyes. He already understood what the dragon was talking about. Fourth prince? The dragon waited for a moment, then asked in a drawn-out voice, the opportunity will not come again. This junior remembers that Xiao Hua seems to have an extremely sharp magic tool. Ao Qian asked very abruptly. The dragon was startled, then shook his head and said, this old man doesn't seem to have seen him use it. Ao Qian asked curiously, could it be that senior has also entered the folded jade legacy realm? The dragon knew that he had a slip of the tongue. His face was full of embarrassment, but fortunately, he was wearing a helmet and couldn't see it. He casually replied, of course this old man didn't, Shua. Without waiting for him to finish speaking, he saw Ao Qian suddenly wave his hand. That dragon claw emitted a silver brilliance, and a blade that was 100 zhang long rushed out. It landed on the left side of the high platform, right between the neck of the first prince who had collapsed on the ground. Pooh! With a sound, the first prince's dragon head flew out. That dragon blood spurted out, instantly dyeing the surrounding ground completely red. The surrounding seawater also began to surge with a bloody light. That dragon clearly didn't expect Ao Qian to suddenly make a move. He was actually startled for a moment, then stretched out his dragon claw and raised a finger. He smiled and said, Fourth prince has made this old man have a whole new level of respect for you. Ao Qian looked at the ground indifferently. The first prince's dragon head was wearing a slightly small crown. The pearls on the crown were scattered and soaked in thick dragon blood. The dragon's eyes on the dragon's head were actually open at this moment, as if he had died with grievances. Humph! Ao Qian coldly snorted, and a dragon-slaying saber appeared in his dragon claw. Then, with a flash of saber light, the other two dragons behind the gold table were personally killed by him. The thick dragon blood rushed into the seawater with the dragon soul. Gradually, the dragon soul faded and disappeared, but the dragon blood filled the surroundings of the seawater. Clean it up. Ao Qian put away the dragon-slaying saber and ordered, kill all three of their personal dragon generals. Then, just as he said this, Ao Qian suddenly froze, because he saw Xiao Hua looking at him from the mirror. That gaze seemed to be able to see through everything. What's wrong? The dragon beside him was also happy that Ao Qian was so nimble. Hearing him suddenly stop, he couldn't help but ask curiously. Ao Qian blinked. When he looked again, Xiao Hua had already looked elsewhere, as if his gaze had just swept past by occasionally. Nothing. Ao Qian responded, and then ordered the dragon generals, "Clean it up, we will grandly welcome the dragon master of my dragon race here." Yes. The dragon generals quickly cleaned up, and the dragon said with a smile, "Looks like, this old man is no longer needed here. This old man will take his leave now. I hope that when this old man sees the fourth prince again, the fourth prince has already fulfilled his wish." "Thank you, Senior." Ao Qian bowed and said with a smile, "Senior, please return to Dragon Island. Please report to the elder that if this junior sits on this golden chair, I will definitely respect the elder's wishes." "Good." The dragon helped Ao Qian up and nodded in response. Without wasting any time, he led some dragon generals out from the side of the hall. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept across the light and shadow of the South Sea Dragon Palace on the surface of the sea and didn't find anything strange. Naturally, he looked at the stairs of the Dragon Palace and said to the sea patrolling Wuxia, "Looks like, the old Dragon King doesn't welcome this old man as an uninvited guest." "No, no." The sea patrolling Wuxia hurriedly said with a smile, "Not to mention that Senior is a dragon master, my South Sea Dragon Palace should welcome you respectfully. Even if ordinary human cultivators come to my South Sea Dragon Palace, my Dragon King will also treat them with respect. My Dragon King hasn't come out for a long time, I'm afraid that there is something important in the hall, right?" "All right." Xiao Hua responded faintly and didn't say anything else. Xiao Hua came this time, in addition to borrowing the teleportation array of the South Sea Dragon Palace to go to the North Sea Dragon Palace, he also had an extremely important purpose, which was to get the last metal and wood magnetism from the South Sea Dragon Palace. Back then, Xian gave Xiao Hua the refining method of the 5 elements wishful heaven cudgel, and at the same time gave Xiao Hua the location of several magnetism. This South Sea Dragon Palace had the metal and wood magnetism that Xiao Hua needed. Since he had a request, Xiao Hua had no choice but to lower his head slightly. He pondered for a moment, put his hands behind his back, and stood on the surface of the sea, waiting quietly. Who would have thought that after Xiao Hua stood there for half a cup of tea's time, he didn't see the South Sea Dragon King come out, and even a dragon general didn't appear. Xiao Hua's face gradually turned cold, and the sea patrolling Wuxia also felt that something was wrong. "Ha ha ha." Xiao Hua laughed and said loudly, "Since the old dragon doesn't welcome this old man, then this old man has no choice but to force his way in." "Senior." The sea patrolling Wuxia hurriedly shouted, "How about Senior wait for a while, Junior will." Without waiting for the sea patrolling Wuxia to finish speaking, Xiao Hua's figure had already landed on the steps of the light shadow of the South Sea Dragon Palace. Woo-woo. A strong whirlwind blew out from the dragon gate on the light shadow, and hundreds of dragon scales flashed with golden light as they fell along with the whirlwind, wrapping around Xiao Hua's body. Seeing this, the sea patrolling Wuxia couldn't help but feel anxious, because he knew where the dragon scales fell. If the one who came was a dragon, the dragon scales would trigger the restriction of the Dragon Palace, opening the passage to the Dragon Palace under the sea. But if the one who came was not a dragon, these dragon scales would turn into sharp blades and kill the one who came. Of course, in the eyes of the sea patrolling Wuxia, these dragon scales absolutely couldn't hurt Xiao Hua, but these dragon scales would successfully ignite the anger of Xiao Hua, who had lost his patience. At that time, thinking of this, the sea patrolling Wuxia didn't dare to think too much, he only wanted to rush over and block Xiao Hua. Chapter 4298. Dong. At the critical moment, the golden bells rang in unison, and hundreds of conch girls flew out of the light and shadow dragon palace. These conch girls either struck the bells, played the zither, or blew the bamboo flute. In the sound of the zither and bamboo, the whirlwind and dragon scales that rushed up disappeared. Looking at the stairs again, a whirlpool appeared, and a dozen dragon generals stepped out. The one with the crown in front was the fourth prince, Ao Qian. When Ao Qian saw Xiaohua, he immediately bowed and shouted, "Junior Ao Qian greets Dragon Master Xiao." "Hehe, so it's the fourth prince. I saw you in the folded jade legacy realm. No need to be too polite." How could Xiaohua let Ao Qian really bow? He hurriedly raised his hand to support his body and smiled. Ao Qian's face was filled with shame as he said, "Junior is really sorry. That day in the folded jade legacy realm, I actually misunderstood Dragon Master. If it wasn't for Dragon Master that day, it would have been impossible for us to come out of the legacy realm. When Junior came out of the legacy realm, I deliberately waited outside for half a day, wanting to apologize and thank Dragon Master in person. Later, when I heard that Senior became the Dragon Master of my dragon race, Junior was happier than anyone else. Junior had always hoped that Dragon Master would come to my South Sea Dragon Palace. I really didn't expect that Junior's dream would come true today. I really have to thank the heavens." While speaking, Ao Qian was about to bow again. Looking at the surprise on Ao Qian's face, it really didn't seem fake. Xiaohua's heart warmed as he helped Ao Qian up and said, "Fourth Prince, you don't have to be too polite. There's no need to say thank you. That day, I was also forced into a dangerous situation and had no choice but to risk my life." Ao Qian smiled and said, "You don't have to say thank you, but an apology is necessary. Junior wronged Dragon Master. If I can't apologize, Junior won't be able to sleep and eat in peace." Xiaohua was helpless and could only let him bow a few times. Then, he helped him up and said, "The situation that day was unclear, so it's normal that fourth prince didn't understand. Now that the truth has been revealed, we don't need to say any more." "Yes, yes." Ao Qian stood up, looked at Xiaohua, and smiled happily again. "It's only been a few hundred years, Senior's cultivation has advanced by leaps and bounds. Junior is really envious. Hehe, lucky, lucky." Xiaohua smiled and didn't say much. He looked behind Ao Qian and said, "Dragon King is in the palace. This Xiao has something to trouble you with." Ao Qian replied, "I'm sorry to disappoint you, Dragon Master Xiao. Father has gone to the East Sea Dragon Palace for a banquet. He's not in the Dragon Palace right now." Xiaohua was quite disappointed and asked, "Then when will your Majesty Dragon King return?" "Not necessarily," Ao Qian said. "It could be 10 days or 10 years. This." Xiaohua was a bit hesitant. He didn't know if he should let the fourth prince send a message to Ao Concrete. After all, the matter he asked the South Sea Dragon King for was not a small matter. Seeing Xiaohua's hesitation, Ao Qian hurriedly smiled and said, "Dragon Master Xiao, since you've come to my South Sea Dragon Palace, you should let this junior do his duty as a host. If Master Long has anything to say, you can tell this junior. If this junior can make a decision, this junior will work for senior. If this junior can't make a decision, then this junior can send a message to Royal Father and even ask Royal Father to come back." Yes, fourth prince's words are reasonable. This Xiao pondered for a moment and nodded. This Xiao thinks. Without waiting for Xiaohua to finish speaking, Ao Qian interrupted him and asked with a smile, Dragon Master Xiao, this is not the place to talk. How about Master Long follow this junior to the main hall of the Dragon Palace? This junior will first set up a banquet to entertain senior. How about we talk while drinking?" "Very good." Xiaohua didn't doubt him and nodded. "Master Long, please." Ao Qian was overjoyed. He turned around and signaled Xiaohua to go first. Xiaohua also smiled slightly and raised his hand. "Fourth prince, please." "Alright, this junior will lead the way." Fourth prince said politely and took the lead to step on the waves of the whirlpool. Xiaohua released his divine sense and took a rough look. He also stepped on the waves. The dragon generals brought by the fourth prince followed behind Xiaohua. The walls of the passage formed by the whirlpool were rotating seawater. The rotation of the seawater caused a huge rumbling sound. Just like a transmission passage, the rotation of the seawater sent Xiaohua and Ao Qian to the bottom of the sea. Even before walking out of the whirlpool, Xiaohua already saw that several thousand li of the bottom of the sea was covered by layers upon layers of palaces. These palaces were similar in style to the palaces on the Dragon Island. They were all abnormally simple and unadorned. However, there was a kind of luxury in this unadorned simplicity. The so-called splendor of gold and jade was nothing more than a kind of vulgarity in this place. At the end of the passage was a huge palace with the same light and shadow as the surface of the sea. The two words, Southern Sea, were written on the signboard. The gate of this palace wasn't open. Instead, there was a gate on the left side of the gate that couldn't be considered small. In front of that gate, there were also members of the water race standing respectfully. Xiaohua followed Ao Qian and landed. His gaze swept across the entire palace and his brows slightly wrinkled. This palace had no less than 9 palace gates. Other than the huge golden gate in the middle, the two sides were vermilion yellow gates. He didn't know what material the gates were made of. The vermilion yellow surface concealed strange dragon characters. Although the dragon characters were in the form of characters, in Xiaohua's eyes, they actually transformed into hundreds of huge dragons coiling in front of the palace gates. A kind of majestic dragon might pounced on Xiaohua from inside the palace gates. Xiaohua naturally didn't care about this dragon might. His slightly wrinkled brows were also seen by Ao Qian. Ao Qian hurriedly smiled apologetically and said, "I'll let Dragon Teacher Xiao know that Dragon Teacher has graced my Southern Sea Dragon Palace with your presence. My Southern Sea Dragon Palace naturally has to open the gate in the middle to welcome you. However, my royal father isn't in the palace. This junior also doesn't have the qualifications to open the Dragon Palace. Therefore, I can only inconvenience Dragon Teacher to use the palace gates that my Dragon Palace of the Four Seas normally uses to welcome seniors." Xiaohua understood. He casually waved his hand and said with a smile, "No need to be polite. This old man dislikes empty formalities the most. Just do as you please." However, after a moment, Xiaohua still asked curiously, "Who usually opens the gate in the middle?" Ao Qian smiled and said, "Naturally, it's opened by seniors who have already reached the highest realm in the 3 continents. For example, the immortal emperor of the Immortal Palace, the 3 Buddhist lords of the Thunder Temple, the 7 great sages of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, and the various elders of the Dragon Island. Oh, of course, other than the realm, when respected seniors come, it will also be opened. For example, Dragon Teacher Xiao." There's no need to mention this old man." Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand. "This old man only has an empty title. How can the Dragon Teacher of my Dragon Clan be an empty title?" Ao Qian raised his hand and asked Xiaohua to leave first. He followed behind Xiaohua and replied with narrowed eyes, "If Dragon Teacher Xiao hadn't done a great favor to my Dragon Clan in the Stacked Jade Legacy realm, how could the various elders of the Dragon Island bestow the title of Dragon Teacher to Senior? Perhaps Senior isn't of my Dragon Clan and doesn't know the origin of the title of Dragon Teacher. The so-called Dragon Teacher is the master of all of my Dragon Clan. No matter where Senior goes, my Dragon Clan has to treat Senior as a master and disciple. We must listen to Senior's words and can't refute them." Ao Qian had the intention to flatter. He carefully accompanied Xiao Hua along the way and led Xiao Hua to the previous main hall. At this time, the main hall had already been cleaned up and there was no trace of blood. As Xiao Hua walked into the main hall, he immediately saw the golden throne at the head of the hall. That enormous throne was carved with countless strange patterns, and a familiar desolate aura was emitted from those patterns, directly filling the entire main hall. If Xiao Hua hadn't fallen into the heavenly prison and saw this desolate relic, he would definitely sigh and be envious. He might even covet it in his heart. But at this time, after plundering the mysterious desolate continent for 100 years, Xiao Hua's space was already filled with treasures. This golden seat was no longer in his eyes. However, the patterns on the golden seat clearly had hidden dragon patterns. It was unknown how many times the dragon kings of the past had blessed it with the heavenly dragon language technique. This was the fundamental reason why Xiao Hua was moved. Ao Qian saw Xiao Hua's narrowed eyes and secretly despised him in his heart. He raised his hand and invited Xiao Hua to sit in the guest seat below the high platform. He accompanied Xiao Hua on the opposite main seat and said with a smile, "Dragon teacher Xiao, my royal father isn't here. This junior will host a banquet on behalf of royal father to entertain senior. If there's anything wrong, please forgive me." "Thank you, fourth prince." Xiao Hua knew that the dragon race was similar to the human race in some aspects of etiquette. Without a banquet, they couldn't talk, so he nodded slightly. Not long after, the dragon palace servants placed the banquet. The golden table in front of Xiao Hua was already covered with many delicacies. Although Xiao Hua was already a Mahayana cultivator, there were many things in front of him that he hadn't seen before. In the end, 2 graceful shell girls danced with their shells. Their bodies were faintly visible in the transparent shells, looking particularly alluring. The shell girls leisurely came from outside the main hall. They swam through the seawater in the main hall, emitting a warm fragrance that seeped into one's heart. When they swam in front of Xiao Hua, they lowered their heads slightly and took out a strange flower with their mouth. This strange flower only had 3 petals, and these 3 petals were almost transparent. Hidden in the transparent flower were dozens of patterns of different colors. These patterns were also strange, and each one was like an undetectable flood dragon. The strange flower swayed slightly in the mouth of the shell girl, and the dozens of flood dragons reflected the light of the overflowing seawater. It was as if dozens of flood dragons were flying around the shell girl. A strange look appeared in Xiao Hua's eyes. He didn't know what the banquet would do with these flowers. However, looking at Ao Qian across from him, there was also a shell girl presenting flowers. Moreover, Ao Qian was looking at the dragon shadow in front of him with interest. Xiao Hua felt relieved. Sure enough, when the shell girl placed the flower on a crystal plate to the right of the golden table, the fragrance of the flower enveloped the delicacies. An appetizing fragrance wafted out from the delicacies, and it was even more alluring than before. After the shell girl waved her shell again and left seductively, Ao Qian moved his gaze away from the shell girl's back. He glanced at Xiao Hua and then glanced at the spirit-parting flower in front of Xiao Hua. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He raised his hand and picked up a huge wine bottle. He gestured, "Dragon teacher Xiao, junior salutes senior on behalf of my father. Welcome to my southern sea dragon palace." Chapter 4299. Xiao Hua looked at Ao Qian, then looked at the wine bottle in front of him and said with a bitter smile, "Fourth prince, this old man doesn't usually like to drink, and this wine bottle seems to be used by the dragon race. If this old man drinks it, won't he be drunk in the main hall? This is Junior's negligence." Ao Qian was a bit embarrassed and hurriedly scolded, "Useless servant, why aren't you changing it for Dragon Master?" Yes. A conch girl hurriedly walked out from behind the pillar, holding a jade plate in her hand. Inside the jade plate were a few crystal cups the size of a fist. These cups were also transparent, and there were some different colored spots inside. These spots were shining brightly, and they were still the bright stars in the night. The conch girl carefully placed the crystal cup in front of Xiaohua, then respectfully picked up the wine bottle and poured it for Xiaohua. Only then did she withdraw and stand behind the pillar. "Dragon Master Xiao, please." Ao Qian stood up, raised the wine bottle, and said respectfully. "All right." Xiaohua helplessly raised his cup. After all, this was the etiquette of the South Sea Dragon Palace. He didn't like to drink, but drinking a few cups was right. Seeing Xiaohua raise his cup, Ao Qian's eyes smiled. He raised the wine bottle first and said, "Junior will drink first." Dragons were several times better at drinking than cows. Xiaohua had seen Ao Jing's straightforwardness on the dragon boat a few years ago. At this time, Ao Qian was not inferior to Ao Jing at all. The huge wine bottle was swallowed in a few mouthfuls, and there was no change in expression on his face. Xiaohua also faintly smiled, raised his cup, and drank the bewitching wine. The wine entered his mouth, and his nose smelled the fragrance of the deity-parting flower. Xiaohua's eyes slightly shook, and he actually had a kind of illusion where many shell girls fell from the sky. At this time, Ao Qian's somewhat blurred voice came again, "Dragon Master Xiao, this is my South Sea Dragon Palace's special Xiao Xin wine. It has a different flavor, and it has always been brought by father for the seniors to enjoy. Today, Junior borrowed Senior's arrival and also basked in some glory." Ao Qian's voice was actually a bit ethereal. Xiaohua saw that the shell girls in the illusion were beginning to have some unbearable actions, so he hurriedly used a secret technique. When the illusion in front of him disappeared, a kind of indescribable sobriety and a feeling of his bloodline gushing out from his body. Xiaohua's bloodline power, which hadn't improved for a long time, actually had a very small improvement. "Oh. This is good stuff." Xiaohua looked at the bewitching wine on the golden table with some astonishment. He firmly believed Ao Qian's words. When Xiaohua raised his head to look at Ao Qian, he saw that Ao Qian was actually slumped behind the golden table. His eyes were somewhat dazed as he stared at the clear seawater. There was even saliva dripping from the corner of his mouth. It was as if he had entered the illusion that Xiaohua had seen before. "Hee, this little guy seems to be gluttonous too." Xiaohua smiled and thought to himself, "It's clearly a good thing that the South Sea Dragon King brought to entertain his distinguished guests, yet he actually wanted to steal it. This can be considered a lesson." As he spoke, Xiaohua raised his hand again, picked up another cup of bewitching wine, and drank it in one gulp. Xiaohua didn't like to drink, but if there was good wine that could stimulate the power of his bloodline, how could he let it go? When Xiaohua was drinking by himself, Ao Qian was dumbfounded. Although the deity-parting flower and bewitching wine were aimed at the dragon race, they also had some effect on human cultivators, especially on the physical body. The human race had no way to compare with the dragon race. Ao Qian was originally waiting for Xiaohua to collapse on the golden table before taking action. But seeing Xiaohua drinking cup after cup as if nothing had happened, he was truly puzzled. He couldn't help but secretly criticize in his heart, "Damn it, is this still a human? Even if he's a dragon, I'm afraid he would be lying down right now, right? Could it be that this Xiaohua's cultivation has already reached the peak of the 9th level of essence energy?" Thinking of this, Ao Qian couldn't help but think of another possibility. Of course, it was only an instant before this thought flashed through Ao Qian's mind. After all, when Xiaohua showed off his might in the stacked Jade Legacy realm, he was only around the 6th or 7th level of essence energy. On the Turning Dragon platform, he was even besieged by the dragon race of the Four Seas. Ao Qian didn't believe that a human cultivator could cultivate to the 9th level of essence energy in a short 200 years. In fact, even if Xiaohua revealed his strength around the 8th level of essence energy, Ao Qian was still a little surprised. However, at this time, Ao Qian's heart was filled with thoughts of how to frame Xiao Hua. The higher Xiao Hua's strength was, the more advantageous it was for Ao Qian. It would be easier for him to explain the grievous news of the three princes being killed to the South Sea Dragon King. Therefore, Ao Qian didn't have time to think about anything else. Of course, Ao Qian was also extremely glad that he didn't immediately make trouble after Xiao Hua drank the bewitching wine. Instead, he chose to observe. Otherwise, his entire plan would be disrupted. After Xiao Hua finished drinking the several crystal cups on the golden table, the conch girl beside him hurriedly walked out, wanting to refill Xiao Hua's cup. Xiao Hua waved his hand and smiled, "No need." "Yes." The conch girl didn't dare to say anything more, hurriedly lowering her head and retreating. However, anything with spiritual effects would always have a limited effect. After Xiao Hua drank a few cups, the effect of the bewitching wine's bloodline power was almost negligible. Xiao Hua was disdainful of merely tasting spiritual wine. His gaze landed on the deity parting flower. Seeing Xiao Hua looking at the deity parting flower, Ao Qian no longer dared to pretend to be drunk. He slightly opened his eyes and looked at Xiao Hua with astonishment. "Dragon Master Xiao, you..." Seeing Ao Qian wake up, Xiao Hua shifted his gaze from the deity parting flower to Ao Qian and smiled, "Many thanks, fourth prince. This wine is very good. It will be very helpful for this old man's cultivation." Damn it! Ao Qian was sweating profusely. He almost jumped up. The bewitching wine and deity parting flower that could make an 8th grade elemental power dragon faint, in the mouth of Xiao Hua, a human, only had 2 words to describe it as very good. Moreover, it was very helpful for this person's cultivation. Ao Qian felt like he was about to collapse. He was a bit regretful of his own calculations. Because the development of the matter had just started, he felt like it was about to break out of his control. If Dragon Master Xiao likes it, Junior will prepare. At this point, Ao Qian awkwardly stopped and said in a low voice, "Junior secretly used Royal Father's wine. I'm afraid I can't give Senior more to take away. Also, I ask Senior to keep this a secret for this Junior." "Huh, don't worry." Xiao Hua laughed, "This old man has received benefits. Why would I expose your shortcomings for no reason?" "Very good, very good." While Ao Qian smiled, he began to regret his previous actions. Without Xiao Hua as a scapegoat, he really couldn't explain to the Southern Sea Dragon King. He had to find another reason. At this time, Xiao Hua opened his mouth. "Fourth Prince, this old man came to the Southern Sea Dragon Palace today to discuss 2 matters. Oh, Senior, please speak." Ao Qian was obviously a bit absent-minded and asked casually. Xiao Hua looked at Ao Qian's flickering eyes and felt a bit bitter in his heart. He knew that this time, he came for nothing. The Southern Sea Dragon King wasn't here. Not to mention the metal, wood, and magnetism, even the matter of borrowing the teleportation channel, this 4th prince probably couldn't make the decision, right? Thinking of this, Xiao Hua looked around in bewilderment and asked, "4th prince, where did the Southern Sea Dragon Palace's crown prince and the others go?" Ao Qian quivered and hurriedly collected his thoughts. He smiled apologetically and said, "My royal brothers have some matters that are not within the Dragon Palace. As for Senior's matter, I'm afraid this Junior can't make the decision." Seeing that Ao Qian's attitude was different from when they first met, Xiao Hua sneered in his heart. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have drunk this so-called spiritual wine. Now that he had gained the other party's face, he was embarrassed to fall out with him. Forcefully using the teleportation channel might be a bit troublesome. Thus, Xiao Hua said indifferently, "What? Could it be that the 4th prince won't even let this old man say what he wants to say?" I wouldn't dare." Ao Qian hurriedly replied, "This Junior was really happy to see Senior earlier, so my blood surged and I agreed without thinking. But now that this Junior thinks about it..." Oh, senior, do you have something to say? Tell me first. If possible, this junior will take the risk and agree. This old man thanks the fourth prince first. Although Xiao Hua was dissatisfied with Ao Qian's attitude, he had always been amenable to persuasion and not coercion. He nodded slightly and said, "This old man wants to use the South Sea Dragon Palace's teleportation channel to go to the North Sea Dragon Palace. I don't know if the fourth prince can make the decision." Ao Qian shook his head slightly. This teleportation channel is a secret of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Ordinary sea race and human race don't know about it. Since Dragon Master Xiaofan knows about this and came to my South Sea Dragon Palace, this junior wants to help senior and is willing to help senior. However, the token to activate the teleportation channel is in the hands of my royal father. This junior doesn't have it, so, this junior can't help senior. Senior, please forgive me. Xiao Hua naturally didn't need any token to activate the teleportation channel. However, facing Ao Qian's attitude as a junior, Xiao Hua really couldn't fall out with him and make things difficult for this respectful junior. Forget it. Xiao Hua stood up and flicked his sleeves. He stood up and said, "This old man will take his leave for now. When your Dragon King returns in a few days, this old man will come again to visit. Senior, don't be anxious." Ao Qian really couldn't bear to let Xiao Hua, the scapegoat, leave so easily. He hurriedly stood up and said, "Senior, please have some food and wine first. Tell me about the other matter. Perhaps this junior can make the decision then." While speaking, Ao Qian raised his head and looked outside the main hall. His gaze changed. The dragon generals outside the main hall were already on guard after receiving Ao Qian's signal. They should be Ao Qian's backup plan from before. Xiao Hua didn't care about these dragon generals. He looked at Ao Qian and said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "This old man heard that your South Sea Dragon Palace has a metal and wood magnetism? Is there such a thing? Metal and wood magnetism?" Ao Qian stared blankly. Suddenly, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He hurriedly said, "Senior, please take a seat." So senior came for that thing. What? Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and said curiously, "Even the fourth prince can't make the decision on the teleportation channel. Can this metal and wood magnetism make the decision?" Chapter 4300. No, Dragon Master Xiao has misunderstood. Ao Qian's reaction was extremely fast. His thoughts turned quickly, and he smiled apologetically. This junior can't decide on the matter of metal and wood magnetism. However, this junior knows that this item is quite a headache for my royal father. If senior has the means to take it away, I'm sure my royal father will be happy. This junior is naturally willing to help you with such a mutually beneficial matter. Oh. Xiao Hua stopped and sat down. He asked with interest, "What do you mean?" Ao Qian smiled. "Senior is a Taoist cultivator." At this point, Ao Qian suddenly stared blankly for a moment, and he glanced at Xiao Hua with a strange expression. Only now did Ao Qian realize that Xiao Hua was a Tao sect cultivator, and being able to cultivate to the 6th or 7th grade of origin energy in the 3 continents was already extremely rare. How could there be a cultivator like Xiao Hua who had cultivated to the 8th grade of origin energy? However, Ao Qian was only surprised for a moment. He threw this thought aside and explained, "Senior must know that the physiques of the human race belong to the 5 elements. Although my dragon race doesn't cultivate the 5 elements, my physique and dragon arts are mixed with the 5 elements. Among the dragon palaces of the 4 seas, the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace's nature is metal, the Western Sea Dragon Palace's nature is fire, the Northern Sea Dragon Palace's nature is wood, and my Southern Sea Dragon Palace's nature is earth. Within the 4 seas, according to the different attributes of the dragon palaces, there are many natural spiritual items of the 5 elements. The metal and wood magnetism shouldn't be within the jurisdiction of my Southern Sea Dragon Palace. However, this magnetism is not far from my Southern Sea Dragon Palace. This item interferes with the cultivation of my Southern Sea Dragon Palace's dragon race. My royal father wanted to ask the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace and the Northern Sea Dragon Palace for help several times to take away this metal and wood magnetism. However, I'm sure Senior also understands that within the magnetism, the items of the 5 elements must be restricted. My 3 uncles and my royal father tried to do everything they could to no avail. Later on, they simply used some secret techniques of the dragon race to simply cover up this magnetism and ignored it. At this point, Ao Qian was somewhat excited. He stood up and said, "Senior, please wait a moment. Junior will send a message to my royal father. If possible, Senior can use the transportation channel." "Great." Xiaofan clapped and said, "Then I'll have to trouble 4th Prince." "It's not troublesome at all," Ao Qian said respectfully. "It's my honor to be able to do something for Xiao Longshi." With that said, Ao Qian walked to the door of the main hall. He did not leave the main hall. He took out a long bay and handed it to the dragon general on duty at the door. "Go quickly. Send this message to the Dragon King. If he has any orders, report to this king immediately." "Yes, 4th Prince." The dragon general took the dragon shell and hurriedly left, not daring to be negligent. Xiaofan looked at Ao Qian's back and used his heavenly eye divine ability. He didn't hear any message from Ao Qian, so he didn't suspect anything. Then, Ao Qian turned back and accompanied Xiaofan to talk and eat some delicacies. After 2 hours, a dragon general hurriedly returned the long bay to Ao Qian. He reported, "The Dragon King's order has arrived. 4th Marquis, please verify it." "Yes." Ao Qian took the long bay and looked at it. He nodded with satisfaction and said, "You can leave now. Arrange the carriage." "Yes, this subordinate understands." The dragon general hurriedly left after receiving the order. Ao Qian turned around and bowed with a smile on his face. "Congratulations, Xiao Longshi. Father is very happy to receive this junior's message. However, the matter at the East Sea Dragon Palace is not over yet. Therefore, he asked this junior to accompany Senior and wait for his return. Of course, if Senior can settle this matter in advance, this junior can also gain the favor of my father. Oh, Senior, please rest assured. The matter of using the transmission channel is not a problem at all." He, good. Xiaofan knew Ao Qian's mood. In fact, he was even more excited. He was more eager to obtain the metal and wood elemental magnetism than Ao Qian. After all, this was the last elemental magnetism to refine the 5 elements wishful heaven cudgel. "Thank you, Senior." "Thank you." Ao Qian hurriedly bowed. He looked at the delicacies on the golden table and smiled. "If possible, can Senior go now? After this junior succeeds, this junior will organize a banquet to celebrate Senior's success?" "Of course." Xiaofan nodded with a smile. "Please." Ao Qian was very excited. He raised his hand and invited Xiaofan to go first. Xiaofan walked out from behind the golden table and arrived outside the palace gate. He saw a huge whale dragging something that looked like a dragon boat had stopped at the bottom of the steps. "Senior, please." Ao Qian was still very respectful. He invited Xiaofan to board the chariot first. Xiaofan was not polite. He floated up and landed on the chariot. However, the chariot was so big that Xiaofan felt small standing on it. Ao Qian boarded the chariot and said very considerately with a smile, "Senior, I've wronged you. This boat doesn't have a seat that humans usually use." No matter, no matter." Xiaofan was also in a very good mood. He waved his hand and said indifferently, Then, the giant whale dragged the chariot into the depths of the dragon palace. At the same time, dozens of armored dragon generals surrounded the chariot to protect it. Xiaofan had not released his divine sense before. Furthermore, the dragon formation of the South Sea Dragon Palace had sealed off a portion of his divine sense. So Xiaofan only knew that the South Sea Dragon Palace was huge. As for how huge it was, he had no idea. But after the giant whale had been swimming for over 2 hours, there were still many palaces under the chariot. Xiaofan was completely speechless. He sighed and said, "Fourth prince, people often say that the richest place in the world is not the immortal palace, but the dragon palaces of the 4 seas. It seems that it really is true. Although I haven't seen anything particularly precious, looking at such a huge palace, I'm afraid there isn't anything bigger in this world, right?" The East Sea Dragon Palace. Ao Qian replied without the slightest hesitation. Senior must have never been to the East Sea Dragon Palace. Otherwise, you wouldn't say that. Xiaofan was a bit embarrassed. He looked at Ao Qian's spirited face and replied, "Indeed, other than Dragon Island, this is the first time I've been to the dragon race's territory. Dragon Island is the holy land of my dragon race. My dragon palace of the 4 seas naturally cannot compare. Furthermore, Dragon Island is not as luxurious as my dragon palace of the 4 seas." Ao Qian said with a smile. Just as he said that, a colorful halo appeared in the seawater 1,000 kilometers in front of him. This halo was like a spinning wheel of light, sprinkling layers of colors on the seawater, the reefs, and the fishes swimming in the seawater. The deep-sea fishes were originally colorful. Now that they were reflected in this halo, and were frightened by the whale and the dragon generals, they swam frantically. It was as if a huge colorful whirlwind was blowing at the bottom of the sea. It was exceptionally beautiful. Senior, the place where the halo is located is the metal and wood elemental magnetism. There is a dragon formation confinement on it. The successive dragon kings of my South Sea Dragon Palace would use the heavenly dragon language technique to strengthen the dragon formation. Ao Qian raised his hand and pointed at the halo in the distance and explained, "When Royal Father sent back the order, he already said that this junior should take the token of the Dragon Palace so that senior can enter the dragon formation. This junior has already ordered my subordinates to prepare." As he spoke, Ao Qian spat out a mouthful of dragon breath at a part of the carriage. Several dragon patterns appeared on it, and then a dragon-shaped token that was more than 10 feet in size flew out from the dragon patterns. Ao Qian looked at such a large token and raised his hand. The token flew in front of Xiaofan and smiled, "Thank you for your trouble, senior." Seeing Ao Qian cover his mouth and laugh, Xiaofan also laughed. His instinctive wariness lessened a bit. He raised his hand and grabbed, causing the space near the token to suddenly distort. That space, along with the token, shrank and landed in Xiaohua's hand. He said, "Isn't this enough, senior?" Ao Qian was shocked. How could a cultivator on the verge of the 8th grade of essence force achieve this level of spatial control? Only now did Ao Qian suddenly realize that Xiaohua's strength was unfathomable. What he saw before was only the tip of the iceberg. However, since it had already come to this, how could Ao Qian retreat? A lie needed 100 lies to make up for it. Today, Ao Qian had told more than one lie. Other than making Xiaohua the scapegoat, he really had no other way out. Ao Qian clenched his teeth and praised, "Senior's cultivation is really powerful." Junior remembers that in the stacked Jade Legacy realm, Senior was only around the 6th grade of essence force, right? Everyone will improve. This old man may have had more opportunities than others. Xiaohua smiled and waved his hand. However, compared to the Great Tao, these are insignificant. Senior's teachings are right. Ao Qian had made up his mind. His face quickly returned to normal, and he said respectfully, "This junior may not have senior's perseverance. It's difficult for me to cultivate a great ability. The dragon race is different from the human race. Their paths are different. Fourth prince doesn't need to envy this old man. Xiaofan said casually as he looked at the halo approaching. He placed his attention in the distance and didn't notice the faint smile on Ao Qian's face. The place where the halo rose from still looked like a palace, but this palace was very different from the others. Looking from a distance, the palace was divided into 7 different parts, each part forming a tower of different height. These 7 tower-shaped palaces were connected by some dragon-like corridors. Not only were these long corridors piled up with glittering corals and other objects, but they were also inlaid with strange shellfish and dragon scales. These different decorations were connected by thin dragon patterns. Between the light and the ripples, it was as if a giant dragon was cruising. The 7 tower-shaped palaces were sparkling and translucent, emitting 7 different colors. These lights not only rushed to the water area where the palaces were located, but also flickered in the corridors between them. It looked gorgeous and colorful. It's really beautiful. Xiaofan narrowed his eyes and praised. That praise came from the bottom of his heart. Damn it, everyone says that there are countless treasures in the Dragon Palace. But from this palace in a corner of the Dragon Palace, how many crystal stones did it cost? Since the North Sea Dragon Palace has an auction and arena, the South Sea Dragon Palace should also have one. Their sea crystals are really endless. Chapter 43:01. Hehe, Senior, don't underestimate this place. Although it looks beautiful, it's extremely dangerous. Ao Qian said with a smile. Normally, we won't come close to this place. I hope that after this old man leaves, the 4th prince will often come here to enjoy this beautiful scenery. Xiaofan said with a smile. At this moment, the giant whale had stopped. Its body, which was larger than a mountain range, trembled a few times. An undercurrent emerged from the bottom of the sea and rushed to the Dragon Palace. Senior. Ao Qian said respectfully. This place is already very close to the 7 Stars Palace. This junior can't get any closer. Senior only needs to hold the token and get close to the 7 Stars Palace. This junior can only wait here. When my father returns from the East Sea Dragon Palace, our South Sea Dragon Palace will celebrate Senior's achievement. Hehe, no need to be so polite. Xiaofan said with a smile. It's just a small matter. Senior's small matter solved a problem for our South Sea Dragon Palace for who knows how many years. This junior thanks Senior on behalf of my father. Ao Qian was very polite today. He coaxed Xiaofan to rush to the 7 Stars Palace. Xiaofan knew what Ao Qian was thinking. Ao Qian wanted him to deal with this troublesome matter before the Dragon King of the South Sea returned, so that he could show off his achievements in front of the Dragon King of the South Sea. In fact, he was also anxious to get the metal and wood elements in his hands. 1 man and 1 dragon hit it off. Therefore, Xiaohua's figure flashed and arrived in front of one of the tower-shaped halls in the 7 Stars Palace. Buzz! A beam of light shot out from the hall and covered Xiaohua. Then, a huge whirlpool appeared in the sea and dragged Xiaohua in. Oh! Xiaohua's figure just moved. He seemed to have discovered something. His body emitted a bronze brilliance and blocked the suction force. He looked at the other 6 palaces again. When Ao Qian saw Xiaohua fly out, he was so happy that his heart almost jumped out of his chest. One of his dragon claws was already on Long Bay. When he saw Xiaohua suddenly stop, his heart instantly froze and stopped at his throat. He thought that Xiaohua had discovered something unusual and was very nervous. Fortunately, Xiaohua only stayed in the sea for a short while. He withdrew his magic power and followed the whirlpool into the 7 Stars Palace. When the whirlpool gradually shrank, it turned into fine lines on the surface of a shell. Buzz. Buzz. When the 7 palaces of the 7 stars hall emitted a rumbling sound at the same time, Ao Qian narrowed his eyes and slapped the dragon shell with one of his dragon claws. The dragon-slaying saber from before flew out again. It flashed through the air and landed on one of Ao Qian's dragon claws and abdomen. Swoosh! Half of the dragon claws were sliced off, and a gash that was dozens of feet long appeared on his abdomen. Dragon blood gushed out like a fountain. Quick, quick, quickly send a message to Royal Father. Ao Qian shouted in pain. The Dao Sex Xiaohua came to visit my South Sea Dragon Palace. The first Crown Prince, second Crown Prince, third Crown Prince, and this king received him as a Dragon Master and brought Dragon Master Xiao to tour the South Sea Dragon Palace. However, Xiaohua harbored evil intentions. When he came to the 7 Stars Palace, he suddenly attacked and heavily injured this king. He even snatched the trial taker's token from this king's hands. He used the token to sneak into the 7 Stars Palace. The first Crown Prince, second Crown Prince, and third Crown Prince furiously chased him into the 7 Stars Palace. Yes, this subordinate understands. When the dragon general beside the huge whale heard the order, he raised his dragon claws and took out a dragon tool that looked like a wooden fish. Under the urging of dragon chi, the entire dragon chi emitted an earthy yellow light. The dragon general said a few words to the dragon tool. The dragon tool flickered slightly as if it was breathing. A moment later, a surprised voice came from the dragon tool. Yes, 4th Prince. This subordinate will immediately use the 4 Seas message to inform His Majesty the Dragon King. This king is in so much pain. Ao Pu, why aren't you hurriedly sending out the alarm and putting the entire Dragon Palace on emergency alert? Have the South Sea Great General lead 100,000 members of the oceanic race to surround the 7 Stars Palace? Also, ask the 4 old consecrators to come to the 7 Stars Palace. This king is afraid that the 3 princes are not Xiaohua's opponents and will encounter trouble inside. Ao Qian screamed heartbreakingly at the flickering dragon tool. 4th Prince, 4th Prince. The dragon general called Ao Pu hurried forward and called out. You should take the medicine for your injuries first. Now that things have come to this, there is no need to be too anxious. The 3 princes are all experts of the upper 7th level and the edge of the 8th level. That Dragon Master Xiao is merely a human. He won't. Nonsense. Not waiting for Ao Pu to finish, Ao Qian said angrily. You are not saying this because your blood is in danger. The 3 princes are this king's blood brothers. How can this king be at ease with them taking risks inside? That Xiaohua's strength seems to have advanced by leaps and bounds. In a hurry, this king was heavily injured by him. If I cannot see my 3 brothers come out of the 7 Stars Palace safely, how can this king be at ease to heal my injuries? Ao Pu was so moved that even tears fell down. He kowtowed and said, 4th Prince, this subordinate knows that the prince has always placed filial piety and familial love in the first place. But, even if the prince does not heal his injuries now, it will be of no help. The eldest prince has entered the 7 Stars Palace. Only his Crown Prince token can mobilize the Southern Sea Great General. As for the 4 old consecrators, only His Majesty the Dragon King can move them. Alas, alas, what should I do? I can't just watch my 3 brothers. Ao Qian said anxiously. At this point, a mouthful of dragon blood spurted out from his mouth. A lot of blood gushed out from his abdomen. Ao Qian actually fainted. 4th Prince. Ao Pu was shocked and shouted, Dragon Generals, quickly, quickly give the 4th Prince medicine. You and the others should also be on guard. If the situation is urgent, we will quickly escort the 4th Prince away. Who dares to take this king away? At this time, Ao Qian's weak voice came, this king must stay outside the 7 Stars Palace and live and die with my 3 brothers. Buzz buzz. At this time, the 7 tower-shaped palaces of the 7 Stars Palace let out a rapid rumbling sound. The entire sea of thousands of li actually trembled. Ao Qian's face showed surprise. His mouth was slightly open. However, a moment later, the corner of his mouth revealed a sinister smile. He cried out in alarm, "Ao Pu, this," reporting to the 4th prince. Ao Pu was also extremely shocked. The 8th level trial of the 7 Stars Palace seems to have been activated. Damned Xiaohua, this bastard is truly deranged. Ao Qian couldn't help but shout, "Big brother is only at the beginning of the 8th level of essence energy. This 8th level trial. Wouldn't it take his life? And 2nd brother and 3rd brother. 4th prince, 4th prince." On the other side of the dragon weapon, Ao Qian had long heard Ao Qian's words. He also hurriedly shouted, "Are you sure this is the 8th level trial of the 7 Stars Palace? This king can't be sure." A cold light flashed in Ao Qian's eyes. He said in a low voice, "After all, this king has only passed the 7th level trial. However, this king still knows a little about the phenomenon of the 7 Stars Palace. This might not be the 7th level trial. This subordinate understands. This subordinate will inform the Southern Sea General and ask him to make a decision." The dragon general on the other side of the dragon body was clearly experienced. He immediately determined the urgency of the matter from Ao Qian's words. He hurriedly replied and turned off the dragon weapon. Looking at the dimmed dragon weapon, Ao Qian's face clearly revealed a trace of relief. 4th prince. Ao Pu transmitted his voice in a low voice, "How should we deal with this now?" Back in Long Bay, the 4th prince didn't give any detailed instructions. "Quick!" Ao Qian hurriedly said, "Order all the dragon generals and the sea race to surround the 7 Stars Palace. We can't let the thief Xiaohua escape easily. Also, Ao Pu, take this king's command arrow and mobilize all of this king's subordinates to the 7 Stars Palace to support." "Yes, this subordinate understands." Ao Pu's face turned cold as he hurriedly replied. However, he still hesitated and reminded, "4th prince, your injuries, this king's injuries are nothing compared to the danger my 3 brothers are in." Ao Qian's face was still anxious as if he was deeply immersed in the act. When Ao Pu heard this, he immediately understood. The 3 princes were dead, so the 4th prince could only be injured as badly as possible. Ao Qian couldn't heal his injuries before the South Sea Dragon King returned. "4th prince, take care. This subordinate will return and mobilize the troops." Ao Pu had already obtained Ao Qian's command token from Long Bay, so he didn't need to take it anymore. He responded, and his dragon body instantly disappeared in the sea. Ao Qian's subordinates had already gathered. They were only waiting for Ao Qian's command token to besiege the 7 Stars Palace. Xiaohua held Ao Qian's command token in his hand and landed on the 7 Stars Palace. A huge whirlpool above the palace produced a suction force that was about to pull him in. Suddenly, Xiaohua's gaze fell on the 7 tower-shaped palaces of the palace, and a somewhat strange feeling arose. Therefore, he immediately activated his magic power and stopped his body in midair. He looked at the structure of the entire palace again. Previously, when he saw that the entire palace was composed of 7 palaces, Xiaohua didn't feel anything strange because it was impossible to see the secret of the suppression of the metalwood elemental magnetic dragon formation from the layout alone. When Ao Qian called this palace the 7 Stars Palace, Xiaohua's heart moved. The 7 stars in the eyes of Taoist cultivators were naturally the Big Dipper, and the layout of the 7 palaces in this palace was extremely similar to the Big Dipper. Xiaohua didn't care. At this moment, Xiaohua understood that the 7 palaces in the palace were built in the shape of the Big Dipper, but the positions of Migres, Mizar, and Alcade were very slightly different from the Big Dipper in Xiao Hua's memory. What's going on? Xiao Hua frowned and thought to himself, could it be that this 7 stars palace isn't a pure Big Dipper array? Of course, it was only a moment before Xiao Hua laughed involuntarily again because the Big Dipper array in his memory was a Taoist array. Now, what was under his feet wasn't a Taoist array, but a dragon array of the Dragon Clan. It should be understandable that there were some differences in the layout of the 7 stars palace. Therefore, Xiao Hua withdrew his magic power and protected his body. His figure fell into the palace along with the whirlpool. Chapter 4302. It was somewhat similar to the dragon formation he encountered on the Dragon Island. As Xiao Hua's figure descended, several huge dragon marks mixed with the brilliance of dragon scales appeared near Xiao Hua. After that, a powerful dragon might rushed out from the formation and attacked Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua was not worried at all. He only faintly smiled and rubbed his hands. Several crystal lights fell into the sky. A golden light transformed into a dragon image and protected Xiao Hua's body. When the dragon might fell into the dragon image, it instantly disappeared. The pressure of the entire space also disappeared. Swish! The country of 10,000 dragons flashed before his eyes. Countless dragon roars also swept past his ears. Xiao Hua's figure smoothly entered the 7 stars palace. Damn it! Xiao Hua's figure descended and looked all around. He unconsciously shouted in an exaggerated manner, sure enough, it's the Southern Sea Dragon Palace. Just to suppress metal, wood, and magnetism, they spent so much effort. This 7 stars palace is comparable to the main hall of an ordinary sect in the Morning Rain continent. This space was at least 1,000 li in size. It was filled with serene blue seawater. This seawater was motionless like a solidified crystal. And above this space, 3 huge dragon images condensed into 3 huge dragon characters, 7 stars palace. There were no pillars or corridors in the entire space. Apart from the seawater and draconic runes, there were 7 different colored reefs above his head. These reefs were so huge that they were comparable to 7 islands. Each island was shaped like a turtle, a crab, a shrimp, a fish, and so on. Xiao Hua's divine sense was not under any control inside this space. When Xiao Hua's divine sense swept past these reefs, different auras flickered within them, sometimes strong, sometimes weak. However, Xiao Hua could clearly feel that these auras were completely the auras of dragons. There was no difference in essence. Immediately after, Xiao Hua swept his divine sense below his feet. However, he saw that the space below was completely serene blue. It was like an incomparably huge sea crystal. Even with Xiao Hua's divine sense, he was actually unable to see the end. Moreover, the brilliance emitted from the 7 reefs intertwined with each other at the place where Xiao Hua was at. Similarly, the brilliance also spread downwards. This spreading brilliance did not cause any abnormality. The magnetism that Xiao Hua was expecting also did not show any sign of appearing. This dragon formation is really powerful. Xiao Hua looked above his head and then below his feet. Other than the dragon's might, there was only the seawater. There was not a trace of origin magnetism leaking out at all. He could not help but feel impressed. But at the same time, he felt a little regretful. He had been too impatient. He should have waited for the Southern Sea Dragon King to return and asked him to open the dragon formation that was suppressing the metal-wood magnetism. He only needed to keep the metal-wood magnetism. Forget it, forget it. If I want to get some benefits, I have no choice but to use some tricks. Otherwise, when the old Dragon King of the Southern Sea comes back and haggles with this Xiao after he collects the metal and wood elemental magnetism, how could Xiao Hua not know what he was thinking in his heart? Wasn't it because he was afraid that the South Sea Dragon King would suddenly change his mind and turn around to deny his promise, causing him to be happy for nothing? That was why he hurriedly coaxed the fourth Prince Ao Qian to bring him to the Seven Stars Palace. At the same time that Xiao Hua broke the dragon formation, he also wanted to give the South Sea Dragon Palace a show of strength, so as to avoid any future troubles. As he thought about it, Xiao Hua activated the water escape technique and was about to escape downwards. Who would have thought that just as he moved, tens of thousands of whirlpools suddenly appeared in the seawater within a radius of 100 li. These whirlpools, without exception, all of them emitted different colored lights. At the same time, the 7 reefs above his head emitted hundreds of ripples that fell into these lights. As the whirlpools emitted whistling sounds, the green water in the entire space gradually turned into tens of thousands of flying swords along with the whirlpools. They danced around the entire space. Oh! Xiao Hua slightly frowned when he saw the flying water swords tearing the space apart. The sharpness of the water swords was much sharper than that of a flying sword tempered by ordinary materials. He was rather puzzled as to how an offensive method could appear within the dragon formation that suppressed the metal and wood elemental magnetism. However, this level of flying sword formation still wouldn't fall into Xiao Hua's eyes. Xiao Hua made a gesture in his hand, and layers of flower-like flames flew out with Xiao Hua as the center. These flowers were only one layer at first, but when they came into contact with the flying swords condensed from seawater, Shua. At the same time, a slightly smaller flame flew out from the blooming and pounced on another flying sword. The previously blooming flame quickly engulfed the flying sword that came into contact with it, emitting a low rumbling sound. Just like this, in just a moment, the water swords within hundreds of li were easily destroyed by Xiao Hua. The instant the last water sword was swallowed by the flame, the spot where the whirlpool was formed, where the various colored lights were formed, suddenly began to vibrate at an even faster pace. Tens of thousands of ripples began to unbridledly ripple within the space. At the same time, the 7 reefs emitted a bright brilliance, projecting light beams of several li in size into these fluctuations. Boom! There was another chaotic rumbling sound. Tens of thousands of brilliance turned into light balls the size of baskets and began to teleport within the space of hundreds of li, and the seawater in the space began to thin. Boom boom boom. Xiao Hua frowned slightly. He didn't hurry to dodge. He urged his transcendence energy, and lightning surged around his body. Several balls of light collided with his protective lightning with lightning speed. The balls of light exploded, and an extremely loud explosion rang out. Moreover, the lightning on the surface of Xiao Hua's body was also torn apart by the explosion. It's a little strange. Xiao Hua tried the power of this light ball. He raised his hand, and his spiritual power shackled the water light of dozens of meters. Sure enough, several orange-colored balls of light were revealed from the watery light. Xiao Hua reached out again and grabbed one of the light balls. The light ball spun in Xiao Hua's palm, and at the core of the light ball, a tiny dragon mark was faintly discernible. Puff! Xiao Hua spat out a mouthful of true qi. Boom! That light ball exploded with a loud bang. However, under the confinement of Xiao Hua's spiritual power, the light ball couldn't destroy anything. This kind of power. Is it an attack? Or a defense? Xiao Hua was really puzzled. However, when he scanned with his divine sense, he saw so many light balls flying towards him. His scalp went numb. Humph! Xiao Hua coldly snorted. He scanned with his divine sense again, and the space within hundreds of li was confined. Then, he gently raised his hand and pointed at the crystal-like seawater that was confined. Crack crack crack. There was a burst of chaotic sounds, and countless lightning bolts shot out from this point. In an instant, all the light balls within hundreds of li were destroyed. Then, Xiao Hua withdrew his domain, and his figure turned into lightning bolts, and he escaped into the depths of the space. Boom boom boom. There were 7 consecutive loud rumbles. The sound of space was heard, and the 7 reef-like things exploded one after another. The entire space was shaking violently. At the same time, the boundless seawater in the entire space was also exploding. In the blink of an eye, it turned into 7 layers of blue light, and fell into the 7 reef-like things. At this time, the 7 exploded reef-like things emitted an incomparably dazzling brilliance, as if there were 7 suns in the sky. Huh! Xiaohua's figure escaped for more than 1,000 li. Suddenly, a layer of extremely strange restriction appeared below him, and it blocked his figure. Xiaohua didn't have time to use his divine sense to investigate this restriction. Buzz buzz. There was a buzzing sound above his head. When Xiaohua raised his head, he saw that the space under the illumination of the 7 suns was already covered in layers of dragon patterns. These dragon patterns emitted a desolate aura that Xiaohua was familiar with, and they covered the entire space. As these dragon tattoos spread out, the entire space changed under the light. Numerous towering mountains, towering peaks, and towering ancient trees appeared in the space. Roar roar. After the desolate aura appeared, huge dragons with ancient dragon might flew out from the 7 suns' light and rushed towards Xiaohua. Xiaohua was stunned at first, but when his divine sense swept over, he found that these dragons were just light and shadows. They only had dragon might, but they didn't have dragon bodies. His heart was at ease. Roar. Xiaohua roared and displayed his transcendence golden body. In this space, it transformed into thousands of feet in size. Then, without using any wishful staff, Xiaohua waved his fist. As soon as his fist fell, cracks appeared in the space. As soon as the dragon's light and shadow touched the fist, its brilliance immediately dimmed. When the fist fell, it smashed the dragon's might, leaving only wisps of ancient dragon patterns floating in the air. After a while, they disappeared again. While Xiaohua was testing his skills in the 7 Stars Hall, Ao Qian, who was outside the hall, felt like a year had passed. Everything happened step by step according to his arrangements. Even Xiaohua's strength had unexpectedly reached the height that he had arranged. He should have proudly raised his dragon tail in the air. However, when he saw the brilliance emitted from the 7 halls of the 7 Stars Hall, and this brilliance fell into the surrounding sea. Endless water elemental energy of heaven and earth madly fell into the 7 Stars Hall, his heart tightened again. Damn, this Xiaohua, what kind of monster is he? It's only been 200 years, but he has cultivated to such a level. This strength is more than enough to kill the 3 princes, but if this guy's strength is a little higher, the current array of the 7 Stars Hall may not be able to trap him. If he discovered something strange, wouldn't he have to escape from there? If he escapes, it's fine. If he doesn't leave, he will find this king for an explanation, or even capture this king. What should I do? Why hasn't father come back yet? Where's the South Sea General? Why hasn't he come back yet? Just when Ao Qian felt that he was about to become an ant on a hot pan, an old voice sounded, "Fourth Prince, what's going on?" Chapter 4303. Great General. Ao Qian heard the voice and let out a long sigh of relief. He turned his head and shouted, "You're finally here." Behind Ao Qian, tens of thousands of streaks of light shot out from different splashes of water. When they got close to Ao Qian, all of the streaks of light rapidly gathered. In just a few breaths of time, a massive golden dragon appeared from the streaks of light. Where's the Crown Prince? The figure of the Southern Sea Great General had already appeared. His flashing golden eyes immediately looked at Ao Qian, as if he wanted to see through Ao Qian's heart. Ao Qian's heart jumped, but the expression on his face didn't change. He knew in his heart that although the Southern Sea Great General wasn't loyal to the Crown Prince, he was responsible for the safety of the entire Southern Sea after the departure of the Southern Sea Dragon King. Protecting the Crown Prince was his primary responsibility. Now that the Crown Prince was in danger, if he said anything wrong, he might be killed. Therefore, Ao Qian took a deep breath and told the lie that he had been planning for a long time. Ao Qian's words didn't have any big flaws. After all, Xiaofan had caused a great commotion when he broke into the outer array of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace. Although the Southern Sea Great General wasn't in the array, he had already received a report from the Sea General. He originally wanted to chase after Xiaofan, but after all, he wasn't close to the Dragon Palace. Moreover, Xiaofan was welcomed into the Dragon Palace by the fourth Crown Prince, so he didn't pay much attention. However, he didn't understand why Xiaofan, who was a dragon master, would suddenly come to the Seven Stars Hall when he was touring the Dragon Palace in the sea carriage of the Crown Prince. He also didn't know why the three Crown Princes would disregard their own safety and chase Xiaofan into the Seven Stars Hall. Seeing that the level 8 trial array of the Seven Stars Hall had been activated and the entire hall was emitting a strong fluctuation, the Southern Sea Great General couldn't help but be dumbfounded. He couldn't help but ask, "Fourth Crown Prince, even if Xiao Longshire has the strength of an 8th level origin energy like what fourth Crown Prince said, it's still impossible for him to withstand the level 8 refinement array in the Seven Stars Hall." Ao Qian's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at the seven palaces and the flame-like lights in the long corridors between the palaces. He said indifferently, "Now is not the time to discuss Xiaohua's strength, it is the time to discuss the life and death of this king's three elder brothers. Wait for this general to score a goal." The Southern Sea General gritted his teeth and shouted, "If the Crown Prince is still here, this general will risk my life to rescue him." Great General. Ao Qian turned to look at the Great General of the South Sea. His dragon eyes were already bloodshot. He enunciated each word clearly. "It's not just you. I also want to go in and save my three brothers." However, the level 8 trial array of the Seven Stars Palace had already been activated for half a cup of tea's time. The entire Seven Stars Palace was enveloped by the array. This king does not know what the 8th level trial is, but this king knows that under the 7th level trial, this king was nearly killed by dozens of dragon forms. Now that I'm already level 8, my three brothers, not only are they being attacked by the trial array, there's also Xiaohua, whose strength has already reached the upper 8th grade of elemental energy. Can they survive? Fourth Crown Prince. The Southern Sea General coldly said, "Not only are you trying to delay this general from entering the Seven Stars Palace to save the Crown Prince, you're also saying that the Crown Prince has already lost his life. What are you thinking?" Ao Qian stared at the Southern Sea General. His eyes were also cold. However, after a moment, he slightly shook his head and said, "You're only the Southern Sea General. How would you know what this king is thinking? You can go in, but you must leave behind your Great General token." "Damn it!" The Southern Sea General angrily said, "Fourth Crown Prince, are you trying to seize the opportunity to seize control of the Southern Sea region? How can this Great General token be controlled by you? This king does not want to control it." Ao Qian still shook his head. "But if the Great General wants to enter the Seven Stars Palace, then the Great General must leave the Great General token to your trusted subordinate outside the Seven Stars Palace. This king does not want Xiaohua to kill you and then obtain the Great General token and calmly escape the Seven Stars Palace." The Great General was somewhat hesitant. After all, he knew in his heart that the Great General token could mobilize the army of the Southern Sea. At the same time, it could also control part of the Dragon Palace's restrictive spell. If he could freely enter the Seven Stars Palace with the Great General token, then if Xiaohua obtained the Great General token, he would naturally be able to calmly escape from the Seven Stars Palace and even escape from the Dragon Palace. If Xiaohua really killed the 3 crown princes in the 7 Stars Palace, then wouldn't he be helping the evildoer? In addition, this king has already informed the 4 old consecrators. Ao Qian saw the Southern Sea general hesitate and took advantage of the situation to say, if the great general enters the 7 Stars Palace, this king is not sure if the 4 old consecrators will activate the 7 Stars Palace's Great Formation. Of course, the Southern Sea general knew what the Great Formation Ao Qian was talking about was. He only hesitated for a moment before suddenly asking, what about Ao Ban, Ao Cheng, and Ao Qian? Ao Ban replied almost without hesitation, they naturally chased into the 7 Stars Palace in order to protect the 3 kings. The Southern Sea general nodded slightly, a thoughtful look flashing through his eyes. The 3 dragon generals he just mentioned were all the trusted dragon generals of the 1st Crown Prince, 2nd Crown Prince, and 3rd Crown Prince, just like Ao Qian's subordinate Ao Pu. These 3 dragon generals were all meticulous dragons. How could they casually follow the 3 crown princes into the 7 Stars Palace? Of course, the Southern Sea general could not rule out that there was a situation that he did not know about that forced these dragon generals to follow the 3 crown princes in, but this was already not something he wanted to think about. After the Southern Sea general nodded, he raised his hand and took out the Great General token from the long bay. He calmly said, 4th Prince, please wait a moment. This general has already issued the order. The 100,000 sea race closest to here are heading towards the 7 Stars Palace. After these sea race have gathered, this general will activate the Great Formation of the 7 Stars Palace to prevent Xiaohua from escaping. Hearing the Southern Sea general call him 4th Prince, the corner of Ao Qian's mouth curled into a faint proud smile. He then solemnly nodded and said, that's right. What the great general thinks is exactly what this king wants. If my 3 brothers are still alive, they can take advantage of this opportunity to escape from inside, it's just that the Dragon King will be back soon. The Southern Sea general reminded him worriedly. Ao Qian also sighed and replied, this king did not go through the great general's order to lead Xiaohua into the Dragon Palace from the Great Formation of the Dragon Palace. This is this king's fault. This king will definitely not hide it. Sigh, this matter cannot be blamed on the 4th prince. Although the Southern Sea general did not understand the specific situation, seeing that Ao Qian had begun to form an offensive and defensive alliance, he hurriedly sighed and said, Xiaohua is the Dragon Master of the Dragon Island. Not to mention the 4th prince's negligence, even this general does not dare to offend him. This matter cannot be blamed on the 4th prince. Everything is up to father's judgment. This king only hopes that my 3 brothers are safe and sound. Ao Qian glanced at the 7 Stars Palace and said with extreme sadness. The Southern Sea general knew what Ao Qian meant. He released his origin sense and swept through the space near the 7 Stars Palace. With a solemn expression, he said, not good. The Great Formation of the 7 Stars Palace actually had some flaws under Xiaohua's attack. If he used the trial formation of the 7 Stars Palace to kill the 3 princes, then now. I'm afraid he wants to escape from the formation. Ao Qian hurriedly shouted, quick, great general. You must avenge this king's 3 brothers, okay? The Southern Sea general knew that this was the time to make a choice. He clenched his teeth and flew up. The huge golden dragon coiled in the air and waved the great general's token in its claws into the palace where the Migres star was located. At the same time, the Southern Sea general spat out a mouthful of dragon breath. Aoo. A sound similar to a wolf's howl came from the palace. A pillar of dragon patterns several miles in size condensed and rushed into the sky above the dragon palace. The dragon patterns began to rotate in the blink of an eye. Countless thumb-sized spiritual chi of heaven and earth fell into the pillar. A huge amount of spiritual chi rushed into the Migres star of the 7 Stars Palace. After the brilliance of the palace reached its peak, it suddenly disappeared. Then, the 6 palaces on the left also extinguished one after another in different order. However, when the brilliance of all the palaces disappeared, the entire bottom of the sea once again produced a sound similar to that of a drum. The bottom of the sea shook again. Inside the 7 Stars Palace, Xiaohua urged his transcendent's golden body to shatter the shadows of the huge dragons. The entire space gradually fell into a kind of dim yellow. The thousands of dragon patterns disappeared along with this dim yellow. However, Xiaohua's expression didn't become relaxed because of the destruction of the Great Desolation phenomenon. Instead, he looked at the dim yellow that filled the sky and frowned. Boom boom. Another familiar rumbling sound came from 1,000 miles to the left of Xiaohua. At the place where the dragon shadows were shattered, huge earthen yellow spheres like stars gradually revealed their majestic figures in the dim yellow. Giant stone formation? Xiaohua pinched his chin and looked at the spheres filling up the space of 1,000 miles. He couldn't help but be surprised. This great formation doesn't look like a great formation that suppresses the metal and wood elements. Could it be that this Xiao hasn't reached the Great Formation and is now just outside the defense of the Great Formation? Was it laid down by the previous masters of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace to prevent people from destroying this Great Formation? Just as Xiaohua thought of this, the earthen yellow spheres began to shake and rumble. They smashed toward Xiaohua according to a rather mysterious trajectory. Humph! Xiaohua snorted coldly and released the power of his domain. He wanted to rely on the power of his domain to break this great formation. Unfortunately, just as he released the power of his domain, it was immediately disturbed by a strange fluctuation. Apart from being able to protect his body, it couldn't go far. Hee hee. Xiaohua laughed again and shouted, if it were any other great formation, this Xiao might still be a little hesitant. However, this giant stone formation was something that this Xiao had experienced before I was pregnant. Looking at it now, it's really a little different. Chapter 4304. Just as Xiaohua was about to urge the hammer of divine will to smash these spheres into pieces, he discovered that the surface of these spheres was covered with uneven textures. These textures seemed to be innate. Waves of fluctuations were emitted from these textures, attracting the world's origin chi from within the void. The entire sphere was like a trembling fireball. When Xiaohua's divine will landed on it, it was immediately shattered by the vibrations, unable to exert any real strength. It seemed that even if Xiaohua wanted to use his divine will to smash the sphere, it would be impossible. Even so what? The corner of Xiaohua's mouth curled up. He raised his hand and slapped the top of his head. Puff! 5 elements true chi spurted out and condensed into the shape of a huge hand in midair. Woo! Wherever the wind passed, the void was torn apart by this huge hand. A sphere near the huge hand fell into this huge hand. Not only was the world's origin chi near the sphere imprisoned and could no longer tremble, even the textures on the sphere began to crack under the huge hand. Of course, in an instant, the sphere was crushed by the huge hand. Boom! With a loud sound, it turned into rich earth origin chi of heaven and earth. Oh! It seems that Ao Qian was right. The bodies of the Dragon Clan in the South Sea Dragon Palace are mostly of the Earth Origin Chi. The Earth Origin Chi of Heaven and Earth in the South Sea Dragon Palace is also much richer than in other places. Presumably, there must be an Earth Origin stone vein near the Dragon Palace. The existence of metal and wood origin magnetism really affected the South Sea Dragon Palace. Seeing this situation, Xiaohua's doubts were reduced. Boom, boom, boom. While Xiaohua was pondering, the huge hand did not slow down. The huge hand formed by 5 elements true chi grabbed a sphere in the air and destroyed it. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, it had already crushed more than half of the spheres in the air. Swish swish swish. The sphere disappeared to a certain extent. Beneath Xiaohua's feet, the seemingly unbreakable shackles began to loosen. Magnetic forces suddenly passed through the shackles and fell onto Xiaohua's body. Xiaohua was shocked. He hurriedly moved his body to dodge, but he had only moved a few hundred feet away when the divine will had already scanned the incoming magnetic force. He stopped again. His face was filled with confusion. He actually flew a few hundred feet in the direction of the magnetic force. Whoosh! The slightly weak magnetic force passed through Xiaohua's body. Not only did it not cause any harm to Xiaohua's body, but it also caused the little dot inside Xiaohua's body to tremble slightly. It seemed to have stimulated the bloodline of the absolute saint in the little dot. How strange! Xiaohua might have thought that it was a coincidence when a single strand of origin magnetic force was like this, but it was the same for all the strands of origin magnetic force that entered his body. Rather than saying that this magnetic force was attacking Xiaohua, it was better to say that it was giving Xiaohua a massage. Xiaohua himself had refined the spirit execution primary light, and had even refined the magnetic force into the spirit execution primary light. Therefore, he was very familiar with the magnetic force. Seeing that the tamed magnetic force was completely different from the magnetic force he had seen in the other magnetic force spaces, he couldn't help but feel suspicious. Boom! Just as Xiaohua was starting to feel suspicious, another huge sound rang out in the sky. Xiaohua's divine sense quickly swept out, only to see that at the location of the heaven-forsaken star, the star that was as brilliant as the sun was emitting a brilliance that was 100 times brighter than the other stars. This brilliance burned the space within 100 miles to the point that it was somewhat distorted. Then, from this distorted space, a powerful metal and wood magnetic force crazily surged out. Hiss! Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air and cried out in surprise, What's going on? Why is this magnetic force of metal and wood several times stronger than the other magnetic forces? Could it be that, the 7 stars formation of the South Sea Dragon Palace, isn't used to suppress the magnetic force of metal and wood? Instead, it's using the magnetic force of metal and wood? It's just that, what does this formation use the magnetic force of metal and wood for? Only now did Xiaohua truly guess the purpose of the formation. Unfortunately, he already didn't have the time to think about it. The Migres star, along with the magnetic force of metal and wood, emitted a powerful destructive force. This brilliant star seemed to have been plucked from the blue dome of heaven and fell to the ground with a loud bang, falling towards Xiaohua's location. Humph! Xiaohua coldly snorted again and waved his hand to take out the spirit-killing vital light. However, what made Xiaohua somewhat surprised was that although the Migres star fell, the powerful aura of desolation mixed with the killing magnetic force of metal and wood also sealed a corner of the space. It didn't attack Xiaohua's location at all. Boom! After the Migres star fell, the Fecta star to its left also fell. Similarly, even more magnetic forces of metal and wood rushed into the Fecta star. These magnetic forces of metal and wood also intertwined with the magnetic forces of the Migres star, filling up the space between the two. Not good. This is a large entrapment formation. Xiaohua looked at these magnetic forces of metal and wood beginning to intertwine with each other and immediately understood. He formed a seal in his hand and hit the sword gourd. The spirit-killing vital light immediately rushed out of the sky and fell on the magnetic forces of metal and wood within the range of the Fecta star and the Migres star. Contrary to Xiaohua's expectations, these magnetic forces of metal and wood were different from the magnetic forces of wood and water and fire and earth that Xiaohua encountered in the ruins. Not only did they not merge with the magnetic forces of the spirit-killing vital light, but they instead resisted each other and were not absorbed by the sword gourd. Xiaohua's heart thumped for no reason. Thinking of his encounter in the South Sea Dragon Palace today, an indescribable gloom arose from the bottom of his heart, damn it, could it be that I was deceived by Ao Qian? But Xiao Hua was extremely puzzled again. In the stacked Jade Legacy realm, I didn't directly clash with Ao Qian. Why would he scheme against me for no reason? Although Xiao Hua didn't understand why Ao Qian schemed against him, the facts in front of him had already explained everything. As the Fekta star descended, the Dubhe star, Merak star, Alioth star, Mizar star, and Alkade star also descended, completely sealing the space around Xiao Hua. In fact, after these 7 stars descended, the space around Xiao Hua expanded to several thousand kilometers. In particular, the metal and wood elemental magnetism driven by each star had filled up all the gaps. Not only were there dense light shadows as far as the eye could see, there were also many metal and wood elemental magnetism seeping out of the sealed space. Entangling with different metal and wood elemental magnetism, they formed strange metal and wood elemental magnetism light shadows. Xiao Hua's divine sense could no longer penetrate this huge magnetic light and shadow of metal and wood. He could only use his eyes to see this strange light and shadow. The 7 stars each occupied one side, arranging the skeleton of this light and shadow. Countless magnetic forces of metal and wood formed the outline of the light and shadow, densely packed like muscles. This light and shadow is so familiar. Xiao Hua suddenly stared blankly. A familiar feeling involuntarily emerged from the bottom of his heart. However, he was currently inside the light and shadow, so he couldn't see everything clearly. For a moment, he couldn't tell what this familiar light and shadow was. Swish swish swish. Once the light and shadow formed, countless magnetic forces of metal and wood mixed with the 7 strange waves began to attack Xiao Hua. The waves and magnetic forces of metal and wood hadn't yet fallen, but the power that could tear a body apart had already firmly suppressed Xiao Hua's body. And the strange waves of magnetic forces that were even stronger than the magnetic forces entered Xiao Hua's body. Boom! Xiao Hua felt his blood vessels explode all of a sudden, as if they were about to break out of his body. Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed. He hurriedly urged his soul technique to stabilize his blood vessels. Swish! The magnetic forces of metal and wood had already entered his body. Fellow Taoist. Just as Xiao Hua was pondering how to deal with it, Feng Wu's ecstatic voice sounded, "Don't resist. This is the dragon formation used by the dragon clan to awaken their bloodline power and temper their body. It's extremely helpful for Ai's bloodline fusion." How is that possible? Xiao Hua was so surprised that he couldn't close his mouth. That Ao Qian is neither our relative nor our friend. How could he let us use such an important dragon formation? Moreover, I increasingly feel that this 7 stars palace is filled with a strange feeling. Fellow Taoist, you're wrong. Feng Wu smiled and said, although this great formation is filled with killing intent, it's still a dragon formation used for training. Of course, if you're not strong enough and recklessly enter this place, you'll definitely be killed by these magnetic forces of metal and wood. However, for us, this great formation is a golden opportunity that can only be encountered by chance. Damn it, who cares what it means? Such a great opportunity is hard to come by. Why don't we hurry up and enjoy it? Xiao Hua didn't feel like wasting time. He urged his body to move, and a huge phoenix body gradually appeared. The countless waves of magnetic forces of metal and wood all entered Xiao Hua's phoenix body. I understand now. As Xiao Hua's phoenix body expanded, the space also expanded. Gradually, Xiao Hua understood the entire light and shadow. He suddenly realized something and said, "Isn't this light and shadow the great god of Meng Mountains? Isn't he the great Magus who is said to be able to control the power of bloodline?" Outside of Xiao Hua's huge phoenix body, 7 bright stars, namely Dubhe, Merak, Fekta, Migrez, Alioth, Mizar, and Alkade, were shining with various colors. Individually, they formed the shape of the Big Dipper. But when these 7 bright stars were connected by the white and green magnetic forces of metal and wood, they formed the image of a great magus with a human head, a beast body, and 2 green snakes on his ears. Of course, this image of a great magus was slightly different from what Xiaohua knew. Moreover, there were many dragon patterns and dragon scales mixed in between the green and white colors, making this so-called great magus look more similar to the dragon clan. However, whether this light and shadow was the great god of Meng Mountains or a great god of the dragon clan was no longer important. What was important was that the entire great formation was letting out a loud rumbling sound. The entire 7 stars palace disappeared in this rumbling sound, and a huge primal world was slowly being born under the influence of the waves and magnetic forces of metal and wood. As the primal world was born, a strange wave rushed out from the Dubhe, one of the 7 bright stars, and the other 6 stars also responded to it. Then, the entire primal world was filled with a scene of heaven and earth collapsing, and mountains roaring and tsunamis roaring. The wave also rushed into Xiaohua's phoenix body like a tsunami, urging the fusion of the bloodline of the Supreme Saint within the 132 million tiny dots. Chapter 4305. The trial lasted for the time it took for an incense stick to burn before the fluctuations slowly slowed down. At the same time, the chaotic world was also annihilated in the light and shadow. Then, another wave of energy came from planet Tianxian. Another barren world was born. In this barren world, 100 saints were showing off their might and 10,000 dragons were wreaking havoc. All kinds of barren worlds were imprinted in Xiaohua's mind and merged with his previous memories. The wave of energy then continued to merge with the bloodline of the Absolute Saint. In this way, Fekta star, Migres star, Alioth star, Mizar star, and all the way to Alcade star. Each star had a different fluctuation, and each fluctuation corresponded to a different world. The instant the Alcade star was annihilated, boom! The void above Xiaohua's head split open, and a vast and boundless starry sky appeared in front of Xiaohua. This starry sky was completely different from the starry sky that Xiaohua usually saw. Above the starry sky, every star emitted a vivid starlight. These starlights were like flames, attracting the Supreme Saint bloodline in Xiaohua's body. Above the starry sky, Dubhe, Merak, Fekta, Migres, Alioth, Mizar, and Alcade formed the Big Dipper, which was dazzling and even exceptionally large. This isn't the 7 stars palace's dragon formation. Xiaohua unfolded his phoenix body and flapped his wings, causing a whistling gale to emerge from the void. When Xiaohua felt that the starry sky was filled with the wild, unruly, and free power of the stars and moon, he suddenly came to a realization and exclaimed, even if that dragon formation was 100 times stronger, it still wouldn't have such power. Rumble, rumble, rumble. While Xiaohua was still in shock, countless brilliant stars in the starry sky seemed to explode, emitting a powerful beam of starlight. This beam of light carried a world-destroying aura as it blasted towards Xiaohua's phoenix body. Damn it! Seeing this, Xiaohua turned pale with fright. If this light beam landed on his body, he would be smashed into pieces. Fellow Taoist, don't worry. At this time, Feng Wu's voice was extremely pleasantly surprised. This is the star worship saint that my demon race must go through to become a great saint. I only need to go through this tribulation to become a great saint. Xiaohua was shocked. Fellow Taoist, you're only at the initial stage of the space-devouring realm. Although your strength has reached the 9th level of origin energy, how can you become a great saint now? Fellow Taoist, do you still not understand? The so-called realms were nothing more than a convenient way to distinguish the various cultivation methods. The position of a great sage was similar to the Buddhist sect's Buddha fruit and the Confucian cultivator's Wen Chu. One didn't need to be strong. As long as one could obtain the recognition of the stars in the sky and draw the star mark into one's body, one could become a great sage. If you can't obtain the recognition of the stars, even if you're at the peak of the 9th grade, you won't be able to become a great sage. Feng Wu explained patiently. Xiaohua laughed loudly and said, I understand. Even someone as strong as the Dragon Island's 9th elder could not obtain the extraterrestrial star mark. He was merely a 9th grade elemental energy expert and not a great sage. Although the mystic armored Pentaceratops wasn't an elder of Dragon Island, it was able to obtain the extraterritorial star mark by chance and become a great saint, dominating the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. But then again, what's the use of the star mark? Feng Wu shook her head and said, this star mark is similar to fellow Taoist Confucian cultivators Wen Chu star. If I hadn't obtained it, I wouldn't have known its use. Although I obtained the bloodline of a great sage, I also didn't know how to become a great sage. Before the star mark fell, I also didn't know what use it had. In any case, I have to congratulate fellow Taoist Feng Wu. After cultivating for so long with great difficulty, you've finally reached the final step. Although it came so suddenly, fellow Taoist has accumulated enough. Speaking of which, success comes naturally when the conditions are right. While speaking, Xiaohua laughed loudly and wanted to cup his hands. However, at this moment, he was completely confined by the starlight. He couldn't even move his arms. At this moment, the starlight in the sky shone brightly. That indescribable extraterritorial light filled the entire sky. The starlight was full of pressure, firmly suppressing Xiaohua's physical body, divine sense, and so on. Not to mention Feng Wu coming out of Xiaohua's body, even the blood vessels in Xiaohua's body couldn't move in the slightest. Therefore, Feng Wu could only reply in his consciousness, my joy is also fellow Taoist's joy. Same joy, same joy. However, I's cultivation is different from Nanwu Mithraya's and Wenxiu's. My demon race relies on devouring. As long as my appetite is good, I can take a few more steps. Compared to them, it's much easier. The demon race. If that's the case, then you're even more blessed by the heavens than the human race. Xiaohua's words were very thought-provoking. Boom. While speaking, the first ray of the power of the stars and moon fell into Xiaohua's phoenix body. Xiaohua's phoenix body violently trembled. According to the 132 million small dots, there were 132 million small cracks. These cracks weren't real cracks, but because the power of the nebula made Xiaohua's phoenix body transparent, they looked like cracks. At this moment, an indescribable fluctuation in comprehension, mixed with even more desolate age anomalies, entered Xiaohua's mind from this transparent place. Wu. Xiaohua's phoenix body suddenly let out a howl and rose more than 300 meters. Xiaohua's physical body had already lost its pain. He only felt as if his head had been chopped open by an axe, and many desolate age anomalies were stuffed into it by the stars. Damn it, why is it like this every time? Xiaohua helplessly groaned. Although he had comprehended many truths of heaven and earth, he had only reached the peak of the cultivation world after all. He was still far from being able to truly comprehend these truths of heaven and earth. Forcefully breaking through several times like this really made him feel helpless. At this moment, Feng Wu's voice sounded, fellow Taoist, don't be anxious. This is just the beginning. There's more to come. No way. Xiaohua naturally knew that Feng Wu was right. However, when he looked at the almost endless starry sky above his head, he felt powerless. It was as if the heavenly Tao was too huge, and he was too insignificant. No matter what, he couldn't integrate the heavenly Tao into his body. Seeing the second ray of light falling, Xiaohua's mind raced. He wanted to hide in Shenhua continent or let heavenly Tao Xiaohua come out. Unfortunately, under the confinement of the stars and moon, his mind couldn't move. Am I going to die? Xiaohua felt his head instantly expand. He didn't dare to imagine if his head would explode when all the power of the stars and moon fell. What should I do? If the Phoenix Dharma body was here, perhaps it could. At this moment, Xiaohua couldn't help but think of the Phoenix Dharma body that he had lost long ago. He thought of the Phoenix Dharma body devouring the spirit essence that day. His eyes lit up, and it was as if thunder had struck his mind. Damn it, I was wrong. This stars surround the moon originally belonged to fellow Taoist Feng Wu. Why was I causing trouble here? I can't hold it in my mind, but fellow Taoist Feng Wu can. If he can't, then these 132 million bloodlines can. Following which, Xiaohua's consciousness no longer took the lead and let Feng Wu's consciousness take control of the body. Boom. Boom. Sure enough, just as Xiaohua's consciousness fell into the lower layer, the entire void changed again. The rays of light from the stars and moon that fell one after another became irregular and fell one by one at the same time, hitting Feng Wu's body. Ga. Feng Wu stretched out its neck and let out a long cry. The aura of the entire realm gushed out. Although its entire body couldn't move, under the bombardment of the rays of light from the stars and moon, it slowly rose up and actually gave birth to a kind of graceful bearing of soaring in the region. As expected, Xiaohua's consciousness hid under Feng Wu and felt some enlightenment. He also sensed that the primordial phenomena that Feng Wu couldn't contain fell into the other bloodlines of the phoenix body. Xiaohua already had a realization in his heart. After an unknown amount of time, Feng Wu's body was completely transparent. At this moment, Feng Wu was already above the starry sky. Feng Wu didn't know how big it was. However, at this moment, Feng Wu was only 100 feet away from the numerous stars. Xiaohua couldn't see the stars in the outer realm more clearly than at this moment. However, he saw that these stars were the same size as Feng Wu's body. Under the starlight, they actually condensed into various primordial beasts. Although these primordial beasts had their eyes closed, the aura around them covered the entire starry sky. Xiaohua was stunned. After all, he had seen a sky full of stars under the heavenly Tao starry sky. In the literary song of all beings, he had also seen the literati star and the stars formed by the saints. Now that he saw the starry sky that was dominated by thousands of demons, it was really a kind of subversion of his understanding. However, after a moment, Xiaohua understood. He had already obtained the primordial purple vapor. The various comprehensions had gradually entered his physical body from the nascent soul's spirit body. He began to have a deep understanding of these. Perhaps there was only one heavenly Tao, but under the various cultivation methods, the appearance was different. It would be strange if he saw the saints of the human race in the center of the demon race. At this moment, Feng Wu also seemed to have turned into a star. That valiant aura was on par with the thousands of saints of the demon race in the starry sky. However, there was still a little bit of deficiency, like a kind of visual deficiency. And this little deficiency seemed to be extremely important. It made Feng Wu's demon body unable to reach perfection, and it couldn't be on par with the thousands of saints of the demon race. Xiaohua was hidden under Feng Wu's phoenix body. He had already seen the Big Dipper that was 100 feet tall. At this time, the Big Dipper was completely different from the other stars. This Big Dipper wasn't like the previous giant whale, shrimp, or crab, nor was it like the great saint of the demon race. It was just 7 stars that emitted a primitive aura. Although it was only 100 feet away, this 100 feet was like 100,000 miles, making Xiaohua feel that it was unreachable. But just as this distant feeling was born, that primitive aura rushed into Feng Wu's phoenix body's mouth and nose, making Xiaohua feel that the Big Dipper was in his heart. Not good. Seeing that the Big Dipper in the void suddenly flashed brilliantly at the same time, 7 huge pillars of light from the stars and the moon strangely twisted in the 100 feet of the void and fell towards Feng Wu's huge phoenix body. Feng Wu suddenly panicked. P.S. Thank you, Alliance Leader, for your habit and freedom. Chapter 4306. Feng Wu's panicked voice suddenly came. When an ordinary demon becomes a great sage, they just engrave a star mark in their demon body. How did I trigger the engraving of the Big Dipper at the same time? With Feng Wu's exclamation, Xiaohua immediately understood that the star mark of the great sage that his phoenix body wanted to achieve was the Big Dipper. If it was an ordinary demon, they only needed to find the recognition of one of the 7 stars, Dubhe, Merak, Fekta, Migres, Alioth, Mizar, and Alkaid, to become a great sage. However, Feng Wu actually got the recognition of the Big Dipper at the same time. Although he didn't know what the primitive catalog contained in the last step of the light pillar would be, Xiaohua couldn't help but have a headache when he thought that other demon clans only needed one to become a great sage. He needed to engrave 7 stars at the same time, which was 7 times more than other demon clans. Of course, Xiaohua knew that although his current situation was very dangerous, if he passed it safely, the benefits he would get would be 7 times more than ordinary demon clan great sages. The problem now was how to pass this crisis. After all, whether it was Feng Wu or Xiaohua, or even Xiaohua's other doppelgangers, they didn't have the experience of becoming a great sage. As the 7 star pillars fell with the brilliance of the Big Dipper that illuminated the entire starry sky suddenly darkened, as if the 7 stars were falling with the brilliance. Although the 7 incomparably vast streams of stellar energy only passed through 100 zhang of space, this 100 zhang of space was like the distance between heaven and earth. The stellar radiance slowly descended, and with every drop of a foot, Feng Wu's phoenix body would tremble violently, as if her transparent demonic body was about to shatter. Seeing that the 7 star pillars were about to approach, in the entire starry sky, the demon clan's 10,000 saints who had their eyes closed suddenly opened their eyes. Some had 1 eye, some had 2 eyes, and even more great sages had multiple eyes. The eyes of the saints were filled with indifference, and there was no welcome or enthusiasm at all. When the eyes of the saints fell on Feng Wu's body, the 10,000 saints roared in unison. The indifference in their eyes disappeared, and they were all filled with anger and panic. With this roar, the entire void shattered, and the star pillars that were about to fall on Feng Wu's phoenix body actually stopped on the surface of Feng Wu's body. The 10,000 saints of the demon race actually wanted to stop Feng Wu from becoming a great saint. Gah! Just as the saints were roaring furiously, a consciousness that was even more arrogant and violent than Feng Wu's emerged from the depths of Feng Wu's consciousness and forcibly took control of Feng Wu's body. Even Xiaohua's consciousness seemed to have been attacked by a violent storm. He turned into a pitiful little chick hiding under the fence of his body, secretly avoiding the rain. The will took control of the phoenix parasol's demonic body. In the shattered void, the phoenix body expanded once more. It spread its wings and broke free from the shackles of space, flying several feet into the sky. Boom boom boom. 7 huge explosions resounded through the starry sky. What surprised Xiaohua was that the 7 pillars of stars had landed on 7 of the 132,200 small dots. The bloodlines of the 7 dots began to mutate in the pillars of stars. As they fused with the transparent body, 7 star patterns slowly formed on the transparent body at the same time. Each of the tiny star patterns carried a mysterious aura and the incomparably vast power of the stars and moon. In the original starry sky, the 7 stars of the Big Dipper had already turned into an illusion. Why are there star patterns? What about the star marks we agreed on? Xiaohua was a little puzzled, but he didn't have time to think about it. Countless strange runes, countless insights, and countless diagrams smashed into Xiaohua's consciousness like huge stars. Damn it, other than Xiaohua of the heavenly Tao, I can't think of any other way to save him. This is forcing him to abdicate. Xiaohua already understood the plan of his demon phoenix body. But at this time, other than reaching out, what else could he do? Unless he didn't plan to let his demon body clone live, unless he didn't want to have a physical body anymore. Fortunately, because the starry sky was shattered and because of the appearance of the heavenly phoenix consciousness, Xiaohua's consciousness could already escape into space. Xiaohua fell into the void without hesitation. The Jade Archive Xiaohua appeared. Xiaohua of the Heavenly Tao already understood the cause and effect of this. Boom! The void inside Xiaohua's space also shook. Xiaohua of the Heavenly Tao followed Xiaohua's consciousness into the void outside. When Xiaohua of the Heavenly Tao appeared, it was like a giant whale swallowing water. The mysteries of the stars contained in the 7 star patterns continuously fell into Xiaohua of the Heavenly Tao. The demon phoenix body was like a sun that emitted a brilliant light. This light became brighter and brighter, gradually illuminating the entire shattered void and suppressing the aura of all the demon race great saints in the starry sky. That dazzling brilliance even forced all the demon race great saints to close their eyes and restrain their aura. The entire shattered void wilderness slowly recovered under this light. Moreover, as the mysteries of the stars fell, the star formed by the phoenix body slowly rose. It crossed a distance of hundreds of feet and was on par with all the demon race great saints. The moment the heavenly phoenix's star was on par with the great saints of the demon race, there was a boom. A seemingly metamorphosed impact was born from the heavenly phoenix's body and charged toward the entire void. Not only did it distort the light and shadow of the void, but it also caused the stars of the great saints of the demon race to dim even more. Not only that, this impact rushed to the end of the void and didn't stop. It still surpassed the limits of the void and rushed madly into an unknown place. At the same time, boom boom boom. In the sky above the 1,000 demons sacred realm, it was originally a downpour of rain at noon. Countless roars rushed out from the depths of the firmament. The raging storm instantly stopped, and the dark clouds that completely covered the continent were instantly torn apart by an even more violent storm. The clear sky appeared before the demon race great saints. The blazing sun that was like a fireball also appeared in the clear sky. Unfortunately, in just a few moments, the roars spread across the sky, and the intense power of the stars and the moon appeared again. Countless stars that should have been shining brightly in the dark night suddenly shone from where the roars came from. This starlight tore the entire firmament apart. 1, 2. In just a few breaths, the starry sky was completely revealed in the sky above the 1,000 demons sacred realm. In this starry sky, the lonely sun had completely lost its former dazzling brilliance. 7 roars rang out, and the 7 stars of the Big Dipper joined together in the starry sky, proudly looking down on the entire demon race great saints. The brilliant starlight not only illuminated the entire starry sky, but also the entire 1,000 demons sacred realm. The sudden change in the sky shocked the demon race great saints. The demon race great saints were at a loss as they stared at the sudden appearance of the starry night in disbelief. They were even more confused by the power of the stars and the moon that suddenly filled the 1,000 demons sacred realm. Even more demon race great saints immediately used secret techniques, and the power of the stars and the moon that was more than 10 times denser than normal surged into different parts of their demon race great saints. In the extreme north of the 1,000 demons sacred realm, there was a deep abyss that was several thousand kilometers wide. This abyss was filled with strange rocks, and there were many thumb-sized red demon trees on top of the rocks. These demon trees created illusions under the light of the stars and the moon, turning into fist-sized dragon shadows. With a loud bang, a bright silver crystal pillar suddenly appeared in the abyss. The crystal pillar became even more resplendent under the power of the moon and stars. Before the crystal pillar could fall, another dragon that was tens of kilometers long rushed out from where the crystal pillar came from. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws. This dragon race great saint's body was covered in black dragon scales, and there were strange patterns on the scales. When the patterns connected together, it was like a black armor on the dragon race great saint's body. Roar! The dragon race great saint's loud roar shook the space for nearly 10,000 kilometers. The Star Moon Great Saint's power immediately turned into fist-sized crystal flowers. The Dragon Race Great Saint raised its head, and the Dragon Race Great Saint's horn was revealed. This Dragon Race Great Saint's horn was different from ordinary Dragon Race Great Saint's horn. It had 5 petals, and each petal was engraved with star marks. These star marks flashed with black light under the crystal flowers, and they condensed into the shape of a Dragon Race Great Saint. This is, a Great Saint with Demon Race Great Saint? Why is this star image so strange? The mysterious armored dragon rushed into the air, and his eyes flashed with starlight. He looked at the Big Dipper in the sky with surprise, and the crystal flowers danced around his body. In just a moment, the mysterious armored dragon opened its mouth again, and countless crystal flowers fell into his mouth. Layers of black light rippled from his armor, and the mysterious armored dragon muttered to himself, But who became a great saint? In this saint's impression, it's impossible for a demon to become a great saint in the last 10,000 years in the Thousand Demons sacred realm. Furthermore, if a demon became a great saint, there should be a celestial phenomenon at his location. The Big Dipper's star marks fell directly with the celestial phenomenon. Why is the Big Dipper's brilliance shining over the entire Thousand Demons sacred realm? Could it be that this newly ascended great saint isn't in the Thousand Demons sacred realm? Or is it that the outer realm star energy can't reach his location? Even this saint didn't dare to become a great saint outside of the Thousand Demons sacred realm. Who knows what the immortal emperor or Mahavarakana is planning? If I'm unlucky, I'll fall into their hands. Not only will I not be able to become a great saint, I won't even be able to keep my life. It seems that this newly ascended great saint is very meticulous. He must be hiding in a secret place, and no one can find out. The mysterious armored dragon seemed to have realized something as he looked at the strange phenomenon in the sky. However, since there's a newly ascended great saint, the other 5 saints will definitely know. The Great Holy Hall, which has been cold for 10,000 years, will definitely be lively today. This saint will go and see just what kind of demon was able to hide from this saint's eyes and ears. With that, the mysterious armored dragon rushed into the sky. His dragon body, which was thousands of kilometers long, was even more majestic than a mountain ridge. In just a few breaths, his enormous body turned invisible again, and an indescribable aura blew towards a certain place in the Thousand Demons sacred realm faster than the wind. Chapter 4307. Elsewhere in the Thousand Beast sacred realm, there was a crimson lake of lava. The moment the power of the moon and stars descended, the entire lake began to boil violently. Soon after, a vermilion bird that was over 50 kilometers long flew out of the lake. Scorching lava slowly dripped down the vermilion bird's feathers, and crimson flames that were several kilometers tall appeared around the vermilion bird. As soon as the vermilion bird soared into the sky, it spread its wings wide, covering an area of nearly 1,000 miles. At the same time, half a star mark appeared under each wing, shining brightly with the crimson flames. The vermilion bird's crimson flames filled up the starlight, making it look like a star again. Who is it? As the vermilion bird flapped its wings, its crimson flames devoured the power of the moon and stars for thousands of miles. At the same time, it let out a shrill cry, "Who dares to become a great saint before Zhu Mei? Damn it, this saint will definitely not forgive him." However, the vermilion bird was the same as the profound armored dragon. Just as it began to fly, it stopped in midair and tilted its head to look at the Big Dipper in the sky. That's not right. In the entire Thousand Demons sacred realm, aside from Zhu Mei, who could possibly become a great saint within 100,000 years, who else could possibly enter the Great Saint Palace? This is too strange. That's not right. This doesn't seem to be a simple great saint. The vermilion bird suddenly seemed to realize something. Looking at the sky again, it cried out in shock, "Why did the Big Dipper appear all of a sudden? Who has the guts to imprint all 7 stars into a demon body? Damn it, this saint had split 1 star into 2 and imprinted it into 2 wings. Does he not want to live anymore?" While the vermilion bird was still in shock, the already bright Big Dipper lit up again, twice as bright as before. As expected. The vermilion bird's mouth fell open in shock. Looking at the Big Dipper again, it lit up continuously, each time brighter than the last. In the end, the Big Dipper was completely lit up, shining 7 times brighter than before. How is this possible? The crimson flame vermilion bird was completely dumbstruck. It didn't even care about the crimson flames in the surrounding space as it stared blankly at the Big Dipper. Beneath the South Sea, in the Dragon Palace that was completely covered by the boundless sea, the 7 Stars Palace had completely restored the void. After the demonic phoenix's phoenix body was on par with the many great sages of the demon clan, her phoenix body rose again. 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet, 3,000 feet. Finally, she rose to a height of more than 6,000 feet. Although it was only 6,000 feet tall, the phoenix body star gave off a feeling of tilting the heavens. Wansheng of the demon clan, who had tried to stop Fengwu from becoming a great saint, opened his eyes again. There was only shock, fear, and submission in his eyes. All of this was clearly seen by Xiaohua's consciousness. Only now did Xiaohua realize that the stars formed by the great sages of the demon clan were not completely on the same plane. Some were slightly higher, some were slightly lower, and there were also some that were more than 100 feet tall. However, an existence like him, who was 6,000 feet tall, hadn't noticed it yet. Caw! The demonic phoenix let out another long cry. Its powerful consciousness rushed into the nearby starry sky as if it was demonstrating its might. Wherever this consciousness swept past, the stars that had transformed into great sages of the demon race all closed their eyes. Their starlight slowly weakened, and they turned into ordinary stars. The void around these stars also began to blur. Boom! At the same time as the void blurred, another arched bridge of starlight broke through the void and landed right below the demonic phoenix. On the other side of the starlight, a huge, magnificent palace appeared in the void. Great Sage Palace? Xiaohua was overjoyed when he saw it. He originally wanted to go to the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. With the Great Sage Palace's star bridge, wouldn't it save him a lot of trouble? Unfortunately, just as Xiaohua's joy was born, the demonic phoenix spread its wings and struck the star bridge with a bang, instantly turning it into dust. At the same time, the phantom of the great sacred hall also disappeared in the blink of an eye. The demonic phoenix let out a long cry of disdain, and then its powerful consciousness retreated like the tide. The demonic phoenix left. Xiaohua of the heavenly Tao did not wait for Xiaohua's consciousness to return. He also turned into nothingness and hid in space. Before Xiaohua could say anything, a starry sky comprehension was transmitted into his mind. Xiaohua did not dare to be negligent and hurriedly ordered Fengwu's consciousness to take over, while he concentrated on finishing up. The demonic phoenix's consciousness disappeared, and Fengwu comprehended its own star imprints. Only Xiaohua's consciousness returned. Just as Xiaohua's mind returned to its original position, a kind of exhaustion after extreme excitement attacked him at the same time. Xiaohua urged his monster body to flap his wings, and the power of the stars and moon slowly entered his body. The small dot engraved with the pattern of the Big Dipper also entered his body. 7 star patterns that were not much bigger than sesame seeds appeared on his back. If one did not look carefully, perhaps no one would be able to discover them, right? When Xiaohua retracted his wings, the starlight in the void had already disappeared. Xiaohua did not move at all, but his figure had already retreated from the void. The void was like a curtain, slowly closing behind him. Xiaohua's body returned to its original state, still remaining in the Dragon Palace's dragon array. However, at this time, the 7 brilliant stars that formed Great God Shibai had completely dimmed. The white and blue magnetic force that had previously filled the 7 stars palace's space had also disappeared, leaving only 7 empty star shells floating powerlessly in the air. Fellow Taoist. At this time, Feng Wu's voice appeared in Xiao Hua's mind again. Has the star worship ended? It ended. Xiao Hua replied as if relieved of a heavy burden. After I took over the phoenix body, it ended. So fast. Feng Wu's voice was a little surprised, but it did not reveal any special shock. Xiao Hua stared blankly, then immediately understood, and said with a smile, fellow Taoist seems to have comprehended in the void for another 1,000 years, right? It's more than 1,000 years. Feng Wu smiled bitterly inside. Others have obtained the recognition of 1 star, but I got 7 at once. With so many star imprints, I don't know how many years of vicissitudes were recorded. Of course, fellow Taoist Tian Dao resisted in front of me, but if I became a true great saint, I would have to spend tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years to comprehend. How could I comprehend it? What? Hearing this, Xiao Hua was shocked. Just now, it was only a moment, but fellow Taoist actually comprehended hundreds of thousands of years? Feng Wu. Xiao Hua nodded and said, I don't know exactly how much, but it's more than hundreds of thousands of years, definitely not less. To a great saint of the demon race, time can only be a kind of flowing water. Then, fellow Taoist strength? Xiao Hua said in shock, isn't it more powerful than us? I'm still at the 9th level of origin energy. Feng Wu said with a smile, fellow Taoist, are you disappointed? Nonsense. Xiao Hua spat and said, we've narrowly escaped death, so how can we still be at the 9th level of origin energy? Actually, fellow Taoist already knows, so why are you joking with I? Feng Wu. Xiao Hua smiled strangely, and did not answer. Xiao Hua sighed and said, I don't know, I just hope that there's a kind of luck. Unfortunately, I was still disappointed. Within the 3 continents, only 1 great saint is allowed to exist. Fellow Taoist may be much stronger than a great saint, but you're definitely not 7 times stronger than a great saint. Moreover, I also know that the title of great saint is actually the same as the Buddhist sect's Buddha fruit. It's just that you have more chances to shatter the void compared to other demons. In terms of strength, even if fellow Taoist is now a great saint and has comprehended for hundreds of thousands of years or even longer, you still have a long way to go to surpass the 9th level of origin energy. At this time, I miss the ruins and the primitive continent. If it were there would definitely not be such restrictions. But fellow Taoist's roots are here, in the mortal realm, and not in the upper realm. Feng Wu said with a smile. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes, curled his lips and said, this poor Taoist's roots are not here, forget it, there's no need to say any more, let's hurry and find the metal and wood elemental magnetism. Feng Wu knew what Xiao Hua wanted to say and urged, we've already delayed for long enough, and now we've even taken advantage of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace. If that old Dragon King returns and goes back on his word, it'll be too late for regrets. Hee. Indeed. With such a huge commotion in the 7 Stars Palace, I'm sure the outside world must be in a mess. Let's hurry up and take action. Xiao Hua chuckled and rushed into the bottom of the nearly bottomless space. Xiao Hua flew to the bottom of the 7 Stars Palace, and the starry sky in the 1,000 Demons' sacred realm gradually disappeared. The clear sky appeared again, and the blazing sun also recovered its usual arrogance. However, after a short while, the scattered dark clouds filled the sky again. Lightning flashed and thunder roared, and a violent storm was about to arrive. A heavenly phenomenon flashed across the scarlet flame vermilion bird's eyes as it slowly regained its senses. It spread its wings and disappeared into the void. A shrill cry pierced through the sky, shattering the dark clouds hundreds of kilometers in size. There was clearly a meaningful smile in that cry, and a faint demonic language was left behind in that cry. Since a new great sage has appeared, the great sage hall will have to rearrange the rankings again. This unknown great sage is so powerful, this great sage does not dare to think about teaching him a lesson. However, this great sage may be fine, but how can that golden rock be willing to settle for second place? The mystic armored Pentaceratops must be thinking about something again, right? Forget it, let's go to the Great Sage Hall and see who this new Great Sage is first. The Thousand Demons Sacred Realm originally had 6 Great Sages. The mystic armored Pentaceratops and the scarlet flame vermilion bird were attracted by the phenomenon of Feng Wu becoming a Great Sage, and flew to the Great Sage Hall of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. How could the other 4 Great Sages sit still? Naturally, they also went to the Great Sage Hall from various places. Unfortunately, the Heavenly Phoenix did not care about the Star Bridge of the Great Sage Hall, nor did it care about the Great Sage Halls of the 3 continents. They would definitely miss it. P.S. Sorry, I was busy yesterday and made a mistake, and I missed chapter 3034. Now, I've adjusted the content from chapter 3034 to chapter 3036. Chapter 4308. Putting aside the fact that the distant Thousand Demons Sacred Realm was in a mess due to Feng Wu becoming a great saint, it was another situation outside the 7 Stars Palace. This was because the demon clans, Stars Surround Saint, needed to draw upon the power of the stars. Xiaofan happened to be in the South Sea Dragon Palace at this time. Not to mention how strong the dragon formation of the South Sea Dragon Palace was, just the depth of the South Sea alone blocked the power of the stars outside the Dragon Palace. Feng Wu could only rely on the void to draw upon the power of the stars. Therefore, although the Stars Surround Saint caused a great commotion in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm and the void, it did not attract the attention of the Dragon Clan or the Sea Clan outside the 7 Stars Palace. No one knew that the most powerful great saint of the Demon Clan had been born in front of them. Even if they were ignorant, Ao Qian and the South Sea Great General's hearts clenched when they saw that the 7 tower-shaped palaces in the 7 Stars Palace had lost their brilliance and that endless rumbling sounds were suddenly heard from the 7 Stars Palace. When the entire bottom of the sea returned to normal, the brilliance of the 7 Stars Palace did not return to normal. The faces of the 2 Dragon Clan members were deathly pale. They looked at each other, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. This was the most powerful matrix that the Southern Sea General could activate. Even this matrix could not kill Xiaofan. The 2 of them were really helpless. Ao Qian, Ao Xian. What the hell is going on? Just as the 2 Dragon Clan members were at a loss, an old voice came from afar. Ao Huan, Ao Zhen, Ao Wu, why did you follow that bullshit Dragon Master into the 7 Stars Palace? Before this voice fell, another different voice sounded. Ao Xian, you actually mobilized an army to surround the 7 Stars Palace? Are you out of your mind? If the Sea Clan takes the opportunity to attack the South Sea Dragon Palace, won't the defense of the South Sea Dragon Palace become a decoration? 4 great-grandfathers. At this point, Ao Qian no longer cared whether the 4 consecrators were his great-grandfathers or not. He seemed to have seen his last life-saving straw and urged his dragon body to pounce over. When he saw an old dragon emitting silver light, he immediately cried. You're finally here. You must avenge my 3 poor brothers. What? Ao Huan, Ao Zhen, and Ao Wu are dead? How is that possible? An old dragon clad in copper armor flew behind the 2 old dragons. He cried out in disbelief, didn't I hear that Dragon Master was only at the 6th level of elemental energy? Tell me quickly. What's going on? Before Ao Qian could say anything, a thunderous voice rang out, and several bolts of lightning appeared above the Seven Stars Palace. Although an old dragon with a purple body was flying at the back, it had already surpassed the other 3 dragons and appeared in the seawater above the Seven Stars Palace. Ao Qian didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly explained the cause of the matter, in full detail. Then, he gave the Southern Sea Great General Ao Xian a look. Ao Xian also agreed and explained the situation of the Seven Stars Palace. Finally, he smiled bitterly and said, "For old consecrators, if this junior's guess is correct, that Dragon Master Xiaohua has ulterior motives. His target is the metal, wood, and magnetism below the Seven Stars Palace. This item is the core of the Seven Stars Palace's trial. Without this item, the Seven Stars Palace wouldn't exist." Presumably, the 3 crown princes saw through Xiaohua's sinister intentions and worked together to stop him. However, Xiaohua concealed his strength and killed the 3 crown princes. He also took the opportunity to charge through the trial's great array and attempted to approach the metal, wood, and magnetism. Although this junior activated the final killing array, I still couldn't kill him. I wonder if the 4 consecrators have any ideas? Hearing that Ao Xian had already activated the killing array, the 4 old consecrators' expressions changed greatly. Finally, the purple old dragon shouted with a stern voice. "Are you sure that Ao Huan, Ao Zhen, and Ao Wu have already died in Xiaohua's hands? Otherwise, this killing array would have killed the 3 of them." "Boy can confirm." Ao Qian raised his dragon claw and the wound on his abdomen and said. Before Xiaohua entered the Seven Stars Palace, he casually injured Boy. Although the 3 elder brothers are stronger than Boy, they aren't that much stronger. Moreover, the Grade 8 Trial's Great Array was activated by Xiaohua. His strength should be around the middle of the 8th grade of Essence Energy. Even Big Brother isn't his match. Moreover, under the Trial's Great Array, I'm afraid Big Brother will also fall. Damn it, damn it, damn it. The purple old dragon's temper was more violent. After cursing 3 times, 3 lightning bolts appeared. Then, the dragon's body was about to pounce towards the Seven Stars Palace. Ao Liang. The silver old dragon hurriedly shouted. Don't be impatient. If we forcefully enter the Seven Stars Palace, not only will we be trapped by the trial's great array, we might even let the thief escape from the Seven Stars Palace. Then what do we do? Are we just going to watch? The purple old dragon Ao Liang was clearly the impulsive type of dragon. As he shouted loudly, his dragon body flashed with lightning bolts that wreaked havoc in the sea. The surrounding Seven Stars Palace was so frightened that they all retreated more than 1,000 zhang. The silver old dragon turned his head to look at the red old dragon and transmitted a message in a low voice. Ao Xiao, currently in the Seven Stars Palace, the brilliance of the trial's great array has disappeared. The dragon's might and magnetic force produced and the great array was activated also didn't leak out. If I'm not wrong, that thief called Xiaohua should have already passed through the trial's great array. Impossible. The red old dragon Ao Xiao shook his head with certainty. If the brilliance of the Seven Stars Palace had already disappeared before Ao Xian activated the killing array, then Xiaohua could indeed have passed through the trial's great array. However, since he passed through the trial's great array, the Seven Stars Palace should have opened. The current situation is that the Seven Stars Palace hasn't opened yet. Ao Xian has already activated the killing array. After the killing array, there's no movement in the Seven Stars Palace. The only possibility is Xiaohua has already used a Daoist spell to break the Great Array and is now directly entering the core of the Seven Stars Palace. That's what Aoshi said. He wants to snatch the metal and wood magnetic force. But, there's something fishy about this. The silver old dragon smiled bitterly. If Xiaohua wants to snatch the metal and wood magnetic force, then so be it. But why did Ao Huan and the others also go in? This really makes us hesitate to attack the rat for fear of breaking the vases. Big brother. The red old dragon Ao Xiao sneered. We don't know how Ao Huan, Ao Zhen, and Ao Wu went in, but they must have already died. As for the truth behind his death, it's not something we can guess. Moreover, AOG must have understood something. That's why he's standing there without saying a word. While speaking, Ao Xiao looked at the yellow old dragon opposite the Seven Stars Palace. That old dragon felt his gaze and looked over as well. He nodded slightly at Ao Xiao. AOG. The silver old dragon transmitted his voice. What should we do now? There's no need to know the details. That's the Dragon King's business. We just need to know the outcome, the yellow old dragon AOG answered without hesitation. Activate the dragon form array of the Seven Stars Palace and suppress everything inside. We'll wait for the Dragon King to return. Okay, this old man has the same plan. The silver old dragon nodded. Then, he raised his head and roared. The seawater within 100 miles shook as if it was boiling. Then, the silver old dragon shouted, General of the Southern Sea, listen to my order. Set up the Overturn Oceans Array and surround the Seven Stars Palace. Yes, when the Southern Sea Great General heard the order, he raised his hand and took out a khaki-colored sea flag from the long bay. He unfurled it in the sea, and tens of thousands of waves rippled out from the sea flag, covering an area of several thousand miles around the Seven Stars Palace. Then, the Southern Sea Great General Ao Xian said in a dignified voice, Sea Clan, Dragon Generals, set up the Overturn Oceans Formation. Woo woo. The peaceful South Sea Dragon Palace was in an uproar again. All kinds of sea clans and dragon generals followed the wave of the sea flags and moved towards their respective positions in a well-trained manner. In less than 5 minutes, a solemn and powerful Overturn Oceans formation had been set up. The formation was like a huge wave that converged from the outside to the inside, surrounding the Seven Stars Palace so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Let's activate the Dragon Form Array. Seeing that the Southern Sea General had finished setting up the Overturn Oceans Array, the silver old dragon roared again and ordered. Great-grandfather. AOG was stunned when he heard that. He said in shock, aren't you going to enter the Seven Stars Palace and kill that damned Xiaohua? Perhaps, my 3 elder brothers still have a chance to survive. That's right. The purple old dragon Ao Liang was also puzzled. AOU, us 4 dragons entering the Seven Stars Palace is still not enough to capture that Xiaohua. He's just a human with an 8th level essence power. I'd like to see how this bullshit human dares to call himself a dragon master. Ao Liang. The silver old dragon AOU replied indifferently. We've already passed the age of fighting and killing. Why are you still as impulsive as Ao Qian? Don't you know what we're going to do now? Hearing the silver old dragon say that he was impulsive, Ao Liang couldn't help but want to jump up and refute. However, the yellow old dragon AOG said indifferently, Ao Liang, if you want to enter the Seven Stars Palace, then go ahead. We're about to activate the Dragon Form Array. We don't care about the lives of the Dragon Clan inside. Ao Liang roared and created a few more thunderbolts in the seawater. Then, he waved his claw and took out an ancient crystal plate from the long bay. As he breathed out his dragon breath, the crystal plate turned into a dragon and pounced on the Seven Stars Palace. Seeing that Ao Liang moved, AOG and the other 2 dragons also took out their crystal tokens and threw them into the Seven Stars Palace. Ao Qian's face was a little pale. He knew better than Ao Liang that whether it was the silver old dragon AOU or the yellow old dragon AOG, their words had a double meaning. They clearly expressed their attitude. They didn't care about the truth of the matter. They only wanted to protect the stability of the Dragon Palace. All the details and decisions would be left to the Dragon King of the South Sea who hadn't appeared yet. Therefore, Ao Qian's wishful thinking of using the 4 consecrators to kill Xiao Hua was not going to work. However, at this point, Ao Qian could no longer turn back. He could only clench his teeth and watch the crystal tokens fall on the 4 corridors of the 7 Stars Palace. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.